What's one brutal truth about success every young person must face when they're first starting out?
Negativity. It can drive your confidence to the ground, but you've got to develop that mindset and think someone's opinion of your work is just someone's opinion. For instance, if you're putting out your work for the first time and in one corner it's received badly, don't let that stop you. You've just got to remember your goal and what you're doing and block out all the white noise. Just block it out. And if there are people around you who don't believe in you, again, just think, okay, that's their opinion, but you've got to push forward. If you want it, push forward through all the noise and the rewards will come later on. But bad reviews, negativity, pushback is all part of it. And you've just got to accept it, push through it and block out the white noise and follow your dream.
Yeah. And how much do you try and ignore the hate nowadays, especially where you've got a bit more success now and you've probably got a bit more eyeballs on you, you've got a bit more maybe criticism. How do you try and feed into it and read it, or do you just try and block it out?
I block it out actually. I'm a really, really super positive person, and I'm of the mind that not everybody is going to love what you do. It's like when an actor makes a film, they can be absolutely slated for their performance in one section of society and absolutely hailed in another one. And you've just got to learn that everybody has their own opinions. It's going to happen. Like in the book world, for instance, I've written a lot of books. And you will inevitably get bad reviews as well as good reviews. It's all part of the thing. You're putting yourself and your work out in public. And there will be those who
Hmm.
don't like your style of writing, or they might not like the story you've written. It's just not for them. It can be something as simple as they've picked up the book, not realizing what your story is about, read it, and then giving you an awful review because of it. It happens. So, but for the most part, I'll be honest, that my book's received well, my work is received well, but you do get pushback, and I tend to just block it out and don't allow it to fester in my mind because I don't want it to hinder my path forward. And it can do if you um, allow it too much time to sit
Mhm.
in your mind. They're just other people's thoughts and opinions, and you've just got to make yourself realize that.
Yeah. And why does this matter? Why does it matter for young people to realize that hate's kind of inevitable if you're successful, and to ignore it as much as possible? What would happen if they feed into that and absorb that hate too much? What could happen?
Oh, so I think it's really important because it's a part of life. You can't get away from it. I
Yeah.
mean, everyone will have something to say. And if well, you've seen it, you hear of you hear of some, whether it's a young person or an old person, whatever, they put their work out there, it was received badly or not as they expected, and they completely disappeared from public life. They couldn't
Mm.
cope with it and had breakdowns over it. It depends on your psyche, I think. I think if you can just understand that it's a part of life, um, and it's just literally other people's opinion. And it doesn't matter whether it's good, whether it's bad. People will always have a different varying degree of opinions from all walks of society. You've just got to push forward and know that that is going to happen. And if you can take on board, prepare yourself and think, okay, I know this is going to happen. I'm going to put this out there. Somebody won't like it and they could write something really horrible about me. You will get to a point where you stop reading it, and you'll just think, oh, do you know what, And what I tend to advise people myself is when you get something bad said about you, or you get a bad review for your film, your book, your photography, whatever creative field you're in, or even if whatever job you're in, find something where somebody said something good about you, a review, and just focus on that and think, wow, these are two completely different takes. I'm going to go with this one, the positive one, because that helps you to push forward. And you think, no, obviously some people are really, really enjoying this. I'm going to continue. So always find something good to focus on about your work that somebody else has put out there in your name. if you get something bad said, because that will balance it out, and it will give you, a full circle view, and make you realize that there's good, there's bad. Hey, look, they loved it, they didn't. They liked me, they really didn't. And it's just the way the world is. You cannot
Yeah.
escape it. And find people, surround yourself with people. This is really, really important. Surround yourself with people who, no matter what you're doing, they just have your back. They just believe in you as well. They want to see you do well. Um, and they'll be there for you when you fall, and they'll be there for you when you rise. You need people who will be with you for the journey, not just for the good times, but for the bad
Yeah.
times as well.
Yeah. And how do you find them kind of people? How do you differentiate between, the people that have your back and the yes people who just want to feed off your success when you're, growing?
That is such a good question. I think I've been really lucky, to be honest. I've got a really good family around me who support me 100%. I've got a really good circle of friends in my creative world and private world as well. Um, and I think there's only been over the last 20 years, there's only been a couple of times, I think, where from the unexpected corner, when you think somebody really, really wants to see you do well, and then you realize, no, maybe not so much. And that's kind of a hard pill to swallow, because if you don't see it coming and then it's sort of presented to you in a certain way, you just think, wow, why did I not see that? And you kind of become more aware of the people around you, and you kind of develop, as time goes by and the years go by, who are genuine and who aren't, who are with you for the right reasons, who are standing beside you for the wrong reasons. Because there will be people who inevitably come along who want to take advantage of you in certain aspects of your life, in your career. And you, as long as you are aware of that, I can be aware of something, and they'd never know. It's just that I would be less than likely to entrust anything to them. So although they might not know, I myself know that I don't like confrontations, and I like causing scenes. I just don't trust them with anything. So they will not have beforehand knowledge to go away and try and ruin anything that I'm doing. So just know your people, and the ones who aren't so formidable, shall we say.
Yeah. When you were saying about kind of you knowing but not showing it, it reminded me of this quote from Machiavelli's The Prince, where it's one must be a lion to scare off the wolves and a fox to recognize the traps. I guess that's kind of that fox side that you need to avoid people like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. There will always be panthers in the background, hiding, skulking in the shadows, ready to assail their prey and pounce. And I just feel that I'm always aware of those little panthers in the background. But like I said, I've been really, really fortunate, and I've been really, really lucky. And I have, for the most part, I had a great deal of support around me. And I think why is that? I'm not really sure. I've had this discussion with my hubby, and I'm just very honest and very open. I put myself out there honest and open, and I will do as much as I can to help other people. If they're in my industry and they're up and coming and they reach out, I will help them. I will guide them. I'll give them advice. I'll help them through the difficult times, and I do that quite a lot. And I think if you're not just self-serving, and that we all know there's many people who are just self-serving, but you're out there. Yes, you've got a business to run. Yes, you've got books to promote. Yes, you've got this to promote. And but if you're there and you're bringing people up with you, and you're sharing all the knowledge you've gained with these younger creatives, newer authors, newer people who are out there in their creative fields, I kind of think karma has a way of looking after you as you're going along your own journey. You just can't go through life being completely self-serving, and I suppose in very simple terms, throw people under the bus just to get yourself further up the ladder. And you do see an awful lot of this kind of thing happening. It's always publicly played out as well, especially if you look at the music industry, where bands fall
Yeah.
out and actors and actresses fall out, and you know, um, even the odd author, I've seen them on famous authors on TikTok who, I don't know, may have sold themselves out for one thing or another. And they've got a lot of pushback from the readers of Book Talk and Book Talkers and stuff. I shall not mention names. I don't know the person and all that, but you do see that as well. And I think it's a moral issue where if you publicly put your morals aside and people are witnessing you your decisions affecting other people negatively, it doesn't go down well, and I think I'm of an old school, while you're climbing the ladder, remember who was at the bottom helping to lift you up.
Mm,
Don't forget that. You can
yeah.
never forget that. And if you do, no matter how successful you become, it will inevitably come back to bite you. Because karma holds no prisoners, in my opinion. If you believe in karma, I really do. And it doesn't hold prisoners. It might not be this year. It might not be next year. It could be 10 years. But I don't know. You've just got to be a good person and remember who helped you and who was standing by you when times are really, really hard. Because if it wasn't for certain people in my life, especially when I was younger, I definitely would not be here now. And I
Wow.
made
Yeah.
sure I recognized them. And when I, years later, when I kind of didn't know I would be where I am now, I didn't know I'd be an author. And um, I made sure in my book they're always recognized or mentioned, or in interviews, I always mention them, especially a lovely lady called Blanche. Blanche Hunt, her name was. And she made a huge impact in my life when I was 25, and I just wanted to give up completely. And I think without her taking this young, lost girl under her wing for about 3 years, I lived with her. I really don't think I would probably be here today. I was that lost. And, I think that's the importance of remembering and never forgetting those kind of people in your life.
Mm,
Because without these people who lift you up and stand by you, no matter what's going on, you just wouldn't get where you're going to. Not in the best way possible. So yeah, we have a moral duty to bring those people with us and take care of them later on in whatever matter or manner you can. So
yeah.
it's my
Yeah.
belief
And
anyway. Yeah.
no, definitely agree. Definitely agree. And what were you going through when you met Blanche, and how did she help you get out of it and break through it during that period?
Blanche Hunt, sadly, she passed away 2 or 3 years ago, but she lived a very long, beautiful life. She was about 95, I think 96 when
Oh,
she passed
wow.
away. Yeah. When I met her, um, I was still finding my way in life. I was about 24 going on 25. And I'd come out of a relationship. It was a first love relationship as well. The all consuming, I'm going to die kind of love.
Yeah.
Well, I'd never experienced that before in my entire life. I not, I had been in love before, but this was all consuming. We were going to get engaged. It had gone further than a previous relationship. We were living together in this lovely little village in Warwickshire, and we were renting a little flat by the train station in this gorgeous little village. Anyway, the relationship broke down, and my heart just couldn't take it. Having not being in a place in my life ever where I was able to trust people, because every, I suppose, relationship, or people who were there, entrusted to care for me when I was a child into my teens, were the very people who abused that and completely obliterated that trust and hurt me. So from leaving like the state care system, which we can come back to, between sort of 17, 18 to 24-ish, I was a very vulnerable young woman, finding my footing in the world. And I had no help and no guidance. It was different then. It wasn't like it is today, where you do get help. They do place you in with somebody or with a place and give you some money and give you as help in hand. You didn't have that. You were just like, oh, you're this age now, off you go, carry your bag full of clothes, and you were gone. no money, no
Wow.
help, it was harsh. So Blanche, I kind of found my way, I was putting myself through night school, various things like that. And I was kind of slowly building my confidence. But then this relationship broke down, broke my heart. I really didn't want to be here. I was absolutely devastated. It was just like my whole world crushed down. It hit me hard because I'd opened myself up for the first time in my life to one person and believe in the whole ideology of that first love. And I'm safe now, and we're going to have a beautiful relationship and have a family and have children. It was all going to be so wonderful. And it wasn't. Because first love, I know we were too young, and I've wrote very beautifully about it in the book that we were just too young. But because
Yeah.
where my mindset was of a broken person, it affected me just harshly. So Blanche, anyway, we lost the apartment because I couldn't afford it on my own. And there was this lovely lady in the village. She was a widow. Um, uh, she lived in a little place called Orphan. No, she wasn't a widow, actually. Sorry, she was a divorcee. Sorry, that was somebody else I was thinking of. She was a divorcee. And she'd had her heart broken 20 years before, left as a single mother. And she owned this beautiful Victorian house in the village. And she offered me a room, and I couldn't speak for weeks. I was so heartbroken. It was as
Wow.
if my whole world. You know how when you watch these movies and someone is so broken they can't even leave the apartment. They just
Yeah.
give up on. Like, that was me.
Wow.
So when I went to live with her, I didn't come out the bedroom for days. I wouldn't go down to eat. I wouldn't go down. I just didn't leave the bedroom. I was trying to navigate this heartbreak that I'd never experienced. It was so intense. So every day he would bring food, homemade, put it outside the door, knock the door twice, never forced me, or never enough, just allowed me to be me and work my way through it. I'd open the door, she'd be gone, I'd take the tray, eat the food, put the tray back out the door. This went on for about 2 weeks.
Wow.
And then it was after the 2 weeks, he did it again, this last day, and I opened the door and I took the tray and I said, "Can I come downstairs and eat with you? I think I'm ready now." And she smiled. I'm feeling all actually emotional thinking about this because it was
Yeah.
such an integral point. And we went downstairs and she told me her story, and it was heartbreaking. And she had a child to navigate with as well, her story, but her heartbreak. She understood how I felt because she'd been through it. So we bonded. Now, she was 65 and I was 24, generations apart, worlds apart. And she took me under her wing and she treated me like the daughter she never had. I mean, we started going to the theatre together and we'd go out to dinner together. And she made sure I had a hot breakfast every day before I went to work. She just lifted me up so high and gave me so much confidence. And I looked at this woman who navigated something on her own at a time that was really difficult as well, where it wasn't great for women who were divorced with a single with a child and divorcee, and she had very little sort of help herself. And she gave me everything mentally and lifted me so far high up that I became confident in myself again. And I look kind of to her more than a mentor, but as kind of like a mother figure myself. So she brought me out of the depths of despair through patience and kindness and through no self-gain of her own. She had nothing to gain. She just did it out of just from the heart. There was nothing for her in it. There was nothing for her to gain. It was 100% a selfless act. And we remained friends until she died at 97 for 30 years. And I'd go down to visit her when she moved, and I moved on. And that friendship became a 30-year friendship. Yeah. And
Wow.
I mention her often in interviews. She's got a thank you in my book, Amelia's Story, which is my true life story, because again, would I have written that book had I never met Blanche? Because what would have happened to me if I'd have ended up in a hostel on my own with how broken and how much I'd given up on life at that point? Who knows which path I would have taken? So people impact you in ways you don't even realize until 30, 40 years later. you know, and I often think back to Blanche, and she was like a catalyst for me. And she kind of took me from a caterpillar to a butterfly, if that's a bit cheesy to say, but that's how it feels. You know, she just wrapped all her love around me and saved me, I think. She helped save me. Yeah.
Yeah. What a
So
beautiful woman, and what a beautiful story.
it is.
It's amazing. Amazing that people like that exist and they come into your life at the most pivotal and important part.
Yeah.
Hey guys, first of all, I want to say thank you. There's one person who's been sharing the podcast more than anybody else, and that is you. The only reason why this podcast continues to grow is because you are sharing it. And my only ask is, if this podcast has provided value to you, or you think it'll provide value to somebody else, then if you could send them a DM of the link or a screenshot to the show, that would genuinely make my day. And it's the only way the podcast will continue to grow. That's my only ask of you. Thank you very much.
That's it. I heard a quote, and I'm going to say this so poorly, so I do apologise in advance, but there's a quote about trains and bus stops, and you get on at certain points in your life. And so you're on this train journeying through life, and there's the beginning and there's an end destination. But along the way, there are station stops, and people will get on at certain stops because they're meant to. And then they will only stay with you for a few stops because their part in your life is for this period of time. And it's kind of like fated. They're sent there in that moment. Then they'll get off a few stops later when you're ready to continue the journey on your own, a few more stops. And there's a direct quote kind of exquisitely executing it in a book, and I've never been able to remember it completely. I must look it up and write it down because I've always got it at hand. But it's basically around that kind of sort of train station. The train station sort of quote that is a life quote. And I always felt that God, that's how it feels. You're on a train and people get on and then they get off, and sometimes you're saddened that they've got off because you want them to stay longer, but they've got their own path to follow, and their path is taking them in a direction that you're not going in, you know? And sometimes it doesn't make sense at the time. But as the train goes along and your knowledge is gained, you start to make sense of it and think, that's why they had to go then. Now I see, because I didn't know that this stop up here is where I needed to get to, and they couldn't come with me because they were going that way. Or their job was done, their divine job, so to speak, was done. And life, I really think deeply about these things because I do believe that oftentimes we're guided in ways we can't even fathom or explain, and things happen for reasons we can't explain. So I make my own sense about them, and form these quotes. I'm a bit of a quote writer as well. And
oh no, I love quotes as well. Quotes are so good. Could you share with us what your childhood was like? You mentioned it briefly, but could we go into a bit more detail on how those early experiences influenced your writing and later success and journey?
Yeah, I've written about this. I wrote my memoirs, Amelia's Story, A Childhood Loss. Never knew how successful that book was going to be. Truly, I didn't. I was so scared to put it out in the world. But I was driven to write that because of my daughter. And I wanted her to understand her mother's journey. And I never knew how I was going to tell her because some parts of it are so horrific. At what age can you tell that? She still doesn't. She's still not read the book. She's not allowed. She's 16. So she knows that is not a book she can read. I said, university, maybe when you hit university, that might be the time. Or maybe leave it till afterwards. I don't need to get in an emotional state. It might leave it till afterwards. When I was a child of the 70s, and that was probably the most deprived time for children's daycare. And unfortunately, due to being born into parents who were, my mother in particular, she was an alcoholic, a severe alcoholic, and addicted to barbiturates and all those kind of things. And she just couldn't cope. But she was also quite a narcissistic woman, and she was never wrong. Everybody else was always wrong. And, me and my brothers and sisters, I was the eldest of four, and I had a disabled sister as well, and a brother, two sisters and a brother. But we were in and out of children's homes an awful lot. Um, we would be taken from her because we were found to be locked in our bedrooms. Bedroom windows would be nailed down so we couldn't open them and call for help. Light bulbs would be taken out of the room so we couldn't have light. And then she'd bring home half the pub at night, lock us in our room. You had giant, big industrial bolts. You wouldn't believe the size of them. And they were outside every one of our bedroom doors. And she would lock them, go out drinking, leave us alone. And we could be in the room for 24 hours, 36 hours at some point. Yeah. No access to toilet or anything. So word got around in the neighbourhood where the children, they heard faint screams because, these were kind of like, it was a council estate and word gets around fast. People pay attention. And there's a lot of poor people and poor families who are really doing great things with their children and doing right by them. Just because they've got no money and they're poor, they were great families and trying to give their children the best that they could. So when word got about my mother and her children and what was going on behind closed doors, the neighbourhood got on board. And started making complaints to social services, and it spiraled. Anyway, after being in and out of care and suffering from domestic violence, we'd get beaten. Like I said, enslaved in our locked bedrooms while my mum partied below, and forgot about us because she was drunk and sort of out of her mind for the next 24 hours and forget to feed us or forget to unlock the doors at least. Sometimes she would remember and unlock the doors in the morning so we would go and help ourselves to breakfast and we'd go and play outside all day. But to us, this life was normal. We knew nothing else. It was, that's all we'd ever known. And in the 70s, Gen X era, you played out all day. So you played out with your friends and you didn't go home till the lights came on. And you hear a lot of people talking about that. It's actually very true. And, you go down the rivers and you swing on tyres, and I spent a lot of time in the River Severn, in fully clothed, swimming and all that. Those were good times, when we were outside the house. Because we had some great memories of that, making your own skateboards out of a piece of wood and some old skate wheels and all that kind of stuff. But the reality behind closed doors was awful. You were constantly living in survival mode, fight or flight. And me being the oldest, I was kind of like the mother for my younger brother and my two sisters. I protected them, so I would take the hit. If my one of my younger siblings was in for a beating, I would step in, push them out the way and deliberately sort of make sure my mother was angry enough at me. I'd say, leave them alone. You can't do this. And I'd say anything just to take her. So she'd take her vengeance and that moment of sort of violent, sort of irrational moment out of her mind from her, my sisters to me. So I would often take the beatings. And it wasn't until one of my younger sisters, the disabled one, had a knock. I'll say a knock, a hit, and she ended up in hospital. And she she was very reliant on all of us because she couldn't walk properly. She was properly fit, not mentally disabled, she was physically disabled, perfectly sound in mind, beautiful. But she had one leg shorter than the other and she wore splints because they were trying to she had a lot of operations on the legs and they were trying to balance this too. So she became a target sometimes and I couldn't bear it. I really couldn't bear it. And then I was young as a kid myself. We were just like sort of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and having to navigate this daily. I don't know if you've ever met anybody like this. You are in a situation where you're living in a house with the one person who was entrusted to care for you, love you, and give you all the needs you need as a child. But your daily movements are, your kind of, everything you do is based on the mood of that one person. So if you're totally navigating past the moods that I lot And there were certain things that would happen that if you looked at her the wrong way, you know, you'd get a beating, or you'd be locked in your room, or you'd be deprived foods that day. Or you'd get a slap or even a punch in the face for no reason at all, just because you looked and she didn't like the way you looked at her. So you've constantly cowered, you've constantly got your head down, you're constantly avoiding this this insane violence and mood altering person that could change on the flick of a switch. And in the same instance, 2 hours later, she could have the moment of, oh, come here, let me give you a hug. You know, I didn't mean it. You know, now get outside and play. And then the next minute, you could be locked in your room for 24 hours just because you, I don't know, was happy. It could be something simple as being happy and giggling between me and my siblings because we're happy. And for some reason, that wasn't accepted on that particular day. So you're navigating kind of very sort of narcissistic, almost sociopathic type of person, because there was no guilt and there was no shame. And to this very day, no sorries either. So, you know, and also, you know, I have to say, you know, to this day, you know, my mother's still alive. We're not, there's no contact. We're not in contact. You know, she's an old lady now. She's a couple of years off 80. You know, quieter, toned down version of what she was now, you know, quite solitary and all that kind of thing. So I believe from other members. And she knows I wrote the book a few years ago and she read it. And my brother had a bit of contact with her and he came to visit me and he said, you know, I says to him, did Mom ever say sorry for what she put us through? She ever said sorry? He went, no, but what she did tell me is I read Dawn's book and was it really all bad? She said, you kids did go through a lot and that was the end of conversation. That's the only thing she ever said. So there was no pushback. There was no denial, or I think maybe the years had passed by and she'd realised what she put us all through. But yes, the no contact remains, and it will, because I have a daughter who's had the opposite life, a beautiful life, that I've given her, because I've given her the childhood I would have dreamed to have had myself, that every child deserves. And she's thriving and she's happy and she's at grammar school and she wants to go to Oxford and she's studying law and all that kind of stuff. And I'm so proud of her. And she's the most precious thing in my entire world. And there is nothing I wouldn't do for her. But when backtracking a little, when we were finally taken into care permanently after many times going back and forwards, you know, into care temporarily, a Section 2 order was placed on us and we were remained under the state care for until we were 18. This is a really kind of almost contradicted thing for some people who don't understand this, but when you're a child, no matter at the time, because you don't understand what's going on, you love your parents, but you can hate them at the same time for what they're doing to you. And all you want is their approval. So badly, you want them to love you. You want them to hug you. You want them just to say, you know, I do love you and I'm sorry. And the lack of it just makes you seek it more. So we all got put into care and we were all devastated because we were taken from our familiarity, as painful and as hard as that was. And we were then navigating around the fact that our mother's now dumped us and she beat us and she locked us up and she did all these terrible things, but now she's just given us away like we meant nothing. And all that trying and all that seeking for approval, and then now you're in the care of people you don't know. And not only that, what was commonplace in the 70s, they didn't keep siblings together, so we were all separated and put into different homes. And my two younger sisters were fostered out and then eventually adopted by a family. So we never saw them. I never saw them again. Well, I've still never seen the one. She kind of just lived her own life, went to uni, I heard. I've never met her. I've never seen her. She's never
Wow.
sought anybody out because she was only 3 or 4. She doesn't remember her past life. So she's only got the memories from this family, and good for her. Keep those memories. And I understand totally that she's never gone about to seek her old family, because imagine hearing all that went on. Why would you want to? I can understand that too. Then those that will, never those that won't. And so I don't really know anything about her, and I don't think she knows really anything about the rest of us. So she kind of just disappeared when she went to the adopting family. My other sister, the disabled one, had an awful situation in foster care. I think she was in a couple of foster homes, and her vulnerability and her disable again put her in a difficult situation. She was prevented from defending herself against abuse. So she suffered further abuse in that place. Then my brother, he was sent to a children's home where he stayed for the most part. And he really struggled. He's dyslexic, and he struggled with that. He was very quiet, shy boy anyway, sort of, at the time he was blonde haired, blue eyed. He's got jet black hair now, but he was blonde haired, blue, sort of like greyish eyes kind of thing. And he just turned jet black over the years as he grew up. He was really, really innocent. And I think he became a target not for the most insidious of things that can happen to boys in care. But there was a lot of bullying, he was a victim for the bigger bullies in the children's home. And in those times, they just let the boys get on with it and all that kind of stuff. I myself was sent to 2 or 3 different children's homes, one in Shrewsbury, but it was for a certain age group. And once I hit 12, I had to be moved on again. So I was sent to another one, which is literally a 12-month transfer in between sending you to another. I was sent to so many different children's homes. I didn't know whether I was coming or going. And I became kind of a book geek and just hid in corners behind curtains, reading any donated books that local people sent to these homes. And I hid behind huge drapes of curtains, just reading everything I could, and literally shrinking myself into virtually nothing so that nobody ever noticed I was even there or alive, basically. I did that as best as I could. And it saved me, and books saved me. My writing stemmed from that. I got sent to a very well-known North Wales children's home. It was dubbed in the press as the children's homes from hell. And for 20 years, 30 years, there was the most insidious abuse went on there, and it was hidden for a long, long time. And it came out in the 90s and the 2000s because back then they called it witch hunts. Children were to be quiet. They were to be seen and not heard. People didn't believe the stories. Nobody would believe who was involved, and there was a lot of high-profile names as well at the time. As Theresa May got involved in the 2000s in the children's home that I was in. And she set up an investigation. It's all on the internet and on the .gov. It's all there. It's all in the public to see. So she set up an investigation when she was Home Secretary called the Palale investigation, which uncovered 20, 30 years of the most awful abuse you can imagine, predominantly on boys. So as a caveat, let me throw that in there. I was lucky to be a girl. I don't need to spell out what happened. I think people, they know. And especially if this is going out, I don't want your picture getting taken down. So you like TikTok and stuff. So the most depravity, the most depraved things that can happen in the most insidious of ways. And they'll be taken out to these cottages. The thing is with this children's home was called Bryn Allen Children's Home, and the guy that owned it was a guy called John Allen. I believe he's still in prison. He may have been released by now. I'm not sure, but he's again very old. Now, he owned a series of children's homes. They were like little, beautiful Georgian stately homes, small stately homes, and he converted all 4 or 5 of them into children's homes, but not for doing good for the society and finding, he got paid to do this because he was a private run children's home. These were private run. And it was very common back in the 70s for people who owned private children's homes to cover for the overspill from the state-run children's homes because it was rife with children going into care. This was the most prevalent time in the history of state care. It was overflowing, and it was also, the 70s was also probably the most insidious era where it went on the most. And that's actually online. You can find all the information online. So John Allen had these various children's homes, and he used them for, what's the word? Special rings and P rings and that. Yeah. So they special, and the children were mainly boys. There was a couple of girls. I wasn't one of them. Though again, I had an angel watching out for me. I swear to God, I had to have had an angel, because being in a place like that for 4 years, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the woods in North Wales, with nothing around for miles but fields and woods, I ran away loads and loads of times as well. I did. But I never felt safe, because beyond that, there was all this other stuff going on. You know, there was domestic violence and the stuff on horrible and such horrible stuff going on. But so John Allen, he picked on the most vulnerable boys. Within this complex of Bryn Allen, there was a unit, Blackley House. Then there was Linda's farm unit, the saddest place of all. And it was a place for boys, the young boys that came in. And the young boys that came in, certain ones were targeted. The ones who came in with no families to visit, it would be in care for the rest of their life with no family, nothing, who were there left under the protection of whoever was looking after them, with no recourse, with no checks, with nothing. Those were mostly the boys who were targeted, and they were really young. They were all under 10. And there was a thing going around in the children's home. This was when I was there, and there was like the rumor spill. You know what kids are like. And there was a whole jealousy thing going on. Why is that group of boys always being taken to John Allen's posh house and given all these toys and this money and spoiled, and given their own rooms later on and getting all these gifts, and the rest of us had nothing. And we couldn't make sense of it. But it wasn't till, I was in my 30s, living my own life, and it all got blown up. For late 20s, 30s, it was all blown up. It was all in the press, and these gifts were silencing gifts to keep them quiet. Or as a way to say, look, thank you, you're doing a great job. Now, when you come next time, do what we tell you to do, and you'll get bigger gifts. Yeah, so that's what went on. And sadly, a lot of the staff who were there at safety was entrusted, who were also involved in this inside business that went on. And the children were basically sold out to very rich and prominent people, including the odd MP and judge and police chief and all sorts of things. And all that's come out, and it's all online and everything. There's a lot of well-known people and involved, and there was a lot of arrests, and 200 children over 20 years were not investigated. Sorry, that sounds terrible. Were interviewed. That's the wrong word. Were interviewed, and they got to tell their story, and their voices got heard. And a lot of these people were sent to prison. They were caught, and the place was shut down. But 200 children and their awful stories were heard. And I talk about this in my life story. You know, that whole part of my life is discussed, and what happened later on. Because it wasn't until, I think somewhere in my late 20s, that might have been, time that becomes a blur when you get to a certain age. I remember I was in my late 20s, I bought my first house. I was so proud of myself, because all I ever wanted was to own my own house. It was like a cottage townhouse, 15th century, and the beams were all original beams with the pegs that, that held it together. And it was beautiful, but it was a do-up job. And I was doing it up one room at a time. And I was so proud of myself. I was modelling at the time, working a full-time accounts job. And I was just doing everything that I could. Just wanted to prove to the world, I am somebody. I can do this. I know I didn't have that platform and that education, but I want to be an orphan. I'm going to be, and I know I can do this. you know. Anyway, the house came first. And then one day I remember working on a magazine, Auto Trader car magazine. And I was working for putting the magazine together, and you've got the little ads that you write and all that kind of things for people. And the proofreading department, and it all helped becoming an author later on. And there was these two plainclothes police officers, CID, whatever they're called. They'd asked to see me. Now, in this place, you can imagine, in this my workplace, the boss's office was all glass. That was
Yeah, yeah.
big. And at the time, I was sort of, all I was thinking about was making it in life, and not, people then didn't know about my life. Nobody did.
Wow.
Nobody in my life that apart from Blanche and one or two trusted people, they didn't know about my childhood. I literally thought, it's not going to do me any good. If people know about that, I was afraid. That's the mindset of how little confidence I had, what life had done. I believe people wouldn't want to hire me. They wouldn't want to give me a job because I'd been in a children's home, and I'd been, and I thought I wanted to give myself a fresh start. So for quite a few years, I went to boarding school, which is not far wrong. It was the school was on the ground, but it was in a children's home. So then, I left all the details. I went to a boarding school in Wales. That's it. And then I would cut the conversation and say, "Tell me about you." Anyway, I'd rather hear about you. So I just didn't. I wasn't ready. I didn't want to talk about it. But that was a turning point for me that day. I was interviewed. Then they came again to my home, asked if they could come to my home and interview me privately as well. And I had to give a full statement about my time in the children's home. And that's when they told me about what was going on, about the investigation, about how many children had come forward, that it was going to court. All the detail that came out was just some of the details they shared. It wasn't very nice. It was horrible. And certain things clicked. And one of them said to me, "Are you aware of was a popular song between the children?" And he didn't have to say any more. And I went, "Is it the children's rhyme? If you go down to the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise." I said, "Yeah, we used to always sing it." But the next verse, and I can't remember it, was about something about you'll find John Allen at that, something like that. And it was almost, the children's rhyme was used to express between the children the fear of things were going on, but we didn't know what. And rumours about John Allen was spinning later on. And it's like, what do you think really going on there? Because children were coming back into the children's home after a weekend spent at his house, and they were different. Their eyes were soulless. They had bags under their eyes. They sat in corners. They wouldn't eat. One or two committed suicide. There was quite a few suicides as well. Wow. So, and a lot of children who left Bryn Allen, it's a really sad state of affairs, but they took a path out of the world because they couldn't cope with what was done to them. Because it wasn't done just once or twice. It was done over a long period of time. Some for years, some for months. And children, I say disappeared because I don't know where they disappeared to. One day you'd wake up and you'd say, "Oh, where's James? Where's Floyd?" Or, and they were just gone. No explanation.
Wow.
You wouldn't know. You wouldn't be told. They've just been moved on. You don't know what happened to those children. Where did they go? Were they sent back? Did they get fostered? Did they get moved to the children's home? No, they're just gone. There was some times you knew when children were, one or two children had committed suicide, and because it would be obvious because other children would find them or something like that and call the staff. But a lot of it was a lot to navigate as a child and then come out sane. And I say that confidently because I really did come out sane. I'm not saying I wasn't affected. I was hugely affected. Even to this day, people have to really, and anyone who knows me will say this, people have to really earn their trust with me. And if I at any time discover that the trust isn't genuine, or they're in the friendship for the wrong reasons or whatever, that's it, the end. That's it. There's no second chance. There can't be. Life's too short. So trust is a huge issue. When I've got you, when when if you're in my friend circle, I'm an entrusted circle. That's that you've got someone who will be there for you for your entire life, no matter what. Kind of doesn't always work both ways, though, does it? But for the most part,
Yeah.
it has. And I've got this beautiful circle of friends, like I said, and in the author world too, amazing, beautiful people. And, you know, they really are great friends. I do consider myself so lucky. So this investigation was public. It was all over the place. And that had an effect on me. That knocked me. And it took me to a place I wasn't expecting. And I'm not saying I didn't have a mental breakdown, but I kind of I kind of flipped inside myself, like I was hiding in a cave, so to speak. And I was like, I don't want this. I want to hear this. And it was everywhere, Jacob. Every national
Wow.
newspaper, everywhere. People were talking about it on all the news channels, ITV, BBC, you name it, it's on every channel. It was the talk for a long time. But then every year it kept coming back because something else got found out. Someone else was jailed. Someone else went to prison. This went on for years. And then I assigned myself to the fact that, you know what? Bad things do happen. It's been resolved. Could have been the opposite. They might not have been caught and got to live a great life at the expense of all the children who were dying and suffering or took their life afterwards because they couldn't bear to live with what happened to them. And sometimes that justice is just what people who've been through hideous situations need to continue with life themselves and finally break free and heal. But I had the mindset because, like I said, I read books, lots of them. The education was so poor, especially in Bryn Allen, because there were water cabins on the grounds and the teachers are part-time, you know, and they just got what they could. And it was the most basic of teachings that I'd learned years ago when I was in a normal school. So,
Wow.
you know, there was nothing new to learn. And there was always disruptives because you had a lot of children who were thrown together. So you'd have children like me and other children like me who were there for their own safety and taken out of a situation of vulnerability. But then you had other children who were criminals, arsonists and burglars and who committed assault. And they threw us all together. So what happens in that situation when you've got 50 to 100 kids and you have this small group of innocent ones with all these violent ones? Well, they have their own way of running the place where the staff turn a blind eye, you know?
Wow.
And so you have these real big violent bullies who are sort of judging, deciding how your day's going to go. And what you've got, you have so little clothes, you have so little belongings, but anything that stands out, it's taken from you, gone. You have nothing. Everything's taken from you. And the one thing I managed to keep, I'll never know how I did this. I kept a journal. That's why I was able to write my life story with good detail because I knew I would forget so much detail. I kept a journal from my time in all the children's homes right through till I left. And I used a lot of that to write my life story because I knew I would never have remembered some of that stuff. There are details I still can't remember now. When I read my books through, every once in a while I'll read it through. I'm like, oh my God, yes. And I've even forgotten now, you know. So yeah, it's a life I navigated. Books saved me. Each children's home does have a playroom. It's called a games room, a donated pool table, darts on the wall, a dartboard, and some shelves with old books, and they could be anything. Local people, charities send boxes and boxes of books, which a few of us were really, really thankful for. And when I tell you during my time there, I probably read most books that were there and available from anything. But I discovered Charles Dickens in the children's home. And it was the best thing in my life to ever happen to me because I had a thirst for knowledge. And I was a bright kid. When I was at school before I went into children's, I was doing really, really well. And my English was something I learned, and I loved history. And anyway, I picked up Charles Dickens and I was reading the story of Oliver Twist. And anyone who knows Oliver Twist, everyone has got to know that story. I immediately resonated. I felt a kinship with this character. Oh my God. Oh my God, I so understand. I laughed, I cried, you name it. I was gunning for this kid. And I was like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. We'll do this together kind of thing. Like I had this like mental attachment to Oliver Twist. I couldn't get enough of it. I must have read it 3 times, but watched the movie tons of times. And that was the turning point in my life that I think is why I'm here today. I read Charles Dickens and I couldn't get enough of him. And the way he executed his words, the way he delivered his characters and stories to the page was fascinating to me. I went on to read all of Enid Blyton's books, all these great, Anne Frank, I read everything that was available. But then I discovered something else that became a mentor. So Charles Dickens became my father figure, so to speak, a male mentor. And the most unlikely person, some people might say, was Marilyn Monroe. I found her sort of as an autobiography or biography or something. It's about her true life story with all these. I just saw this beautiful woman in these black and white photos. The whole world knew her name. She was a model and she was intelligent. And people who don't really look into it, if they haven't done their research, she was an exceptionally intelligent woman, but played down her role in society because that's what fitted the narrative at the time for her. But she was also a foster child. She was also, Marilyn Monroe. She had a not so great childhood as well. She was in foster care and she'd navigated certain difficulties, but that was enough for me. She'd been in she'd been in foster care and she'd been through this difficult time which affected her greatly. I thought, wow, she's incredible. I know I'm going to be okay. If she can do it, look where she's now. So I use Marilyn Monroe as kind of my female mentor. She can do it. She was in foster care. I had a children's home. She had nothing. The world knows her name. Look what she's experienced. And I was like, I don't know what it is I'm going to do when I'm out of here, but my destiny will be in my own hands. And I will make the decisions of my life and decide my path forward. I've just got to keep my head down, keep reading books, navigate, make myself invisible, and just get out of here. And that was my mindset. That's the mindset, all because of those 2 books. And I buried myself in them and other books like it. And all I kept thinking about on bad days, because all you hear in these places as well, I'm probably going on and on and not pausing for breath, but I'll stop in a minute. But this...
No. So keep going.
All people tell you, like my mother, and they tell all the kids and the staff, and if you have any idea beyond what they consider, be above, you think you're getting above your station, or I think I'm going to write a poem. Because I wrote short stories. That's when I started writing in the children's home. And I'd write short stories and I'd be quite proud of them. And there was a particular female member of staff that I thought might be approachable. And I asked if I could read this and said, I'd love to write more of this when I'm older. Don't get ideas above your station, she said. That those sort of dreams won't do you any good. It's only open to disappointment. And said, there was no room for not just me, collectively, you kids, you need to just keep your head down. And when you get out of there, don't look above ideas. Don't seek ideas above your station. They're for other people. And you've just got to understand that. And I'm telling you this for your own good. And then you'd hear it more brutally. Who do you think you are? And you'll never make it. No, but you're not good enough. Every child was told that at some point. It weren't just me. They were all told. You're not going to make it. You're not good enough. You don't have what it takes. You're poorly educated and no one will be interested. And so you have to then push through all that as well. So I wrote these stories. From that day on, I never showed another person. I just kept it to myself. And I wrote these crazy little short stories. They probably made no sense to anyone but me. But then I also wrote poetry. And because you have no one to love you or confide in or tell you on the show, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You write poetry. I've written several poetry books as well. So I wrote a lot of poetry. My feelings are in those poetry. So however I was feeling on a certain day, I'd write poem. And those poems reflected my feelings. And later still, I've written an awful lot of poetry about my time in care. And a book more about the feelings and sort of the state of the horrible sort of institutions that raised these children who were never allowed to leave the ground. The schooling was on the ground. You never got the outside world. You became institutionalized. You felt like you were in prison. So,
Mm.
and there was, you navigated an awful lot. But books saved me. So I had this amazing, I consider talent today. I didn't know it was at the time, but now it was definitely a superpower of transporting myself out of my reality by opening a book. I travelled the world, let me tell you, in those grey walls. I travelled the world and I enjoyed it and I read everything, and it didn't matter whether I was I was one of the famous five at one point in my head, and I was always putting myself in one of these characters and imagining. I could imagine the scenes, the descriptions of the places, the country, everything, and I was there. And I wouldn't see what was going on around me then. Once I was in a book, it was as if the rest of the world didn't exist. And I read hundreds and hundreds of books. By the time I left care, I was so well read. It was, very, very well read. And then obviously you reach the age of 16. I think it must have been the early 80s or something. You reach the age of 16 and that was it. You got to go. Your time's gone. You're still under the state care, sort of. The state care is still your next of kin, so to speak. If you're 18, but there was no suitcase with new clothes or open a bank account where you get money put in no benefit. There was nothing, so you can imagine. But they did find me a place to stay with a Norwegian family that I knew from when I was living on the council estate, and it was probably the woman, Torrens. She always looked out for me, and she knew we were suffering, and she'd make Norwegian cakes, and she'd say, come in, some cake and milk. And me and my brother would slip into the house, and we'd never tell our mom because she would just, it was so embarrassing, she'd go there and she'd make this almost like tell. So we'd have these Norwegian cakes and milk, and she'd tell us all these incredible stories about Norway. And what I didn't realise, she'd often looked out for me behind the scenes, asking about me when we got put in care, because we kind of developed quite a close relationship, the two of us. And she always phoned into the social services, how's Dawn doing? Where is she now? And all that. And then he agreed to give me a home when I left care. And I went to live with them for about 18 months. And she was another woman who helped me and made me feel like a valued member of society and validated any dream that I had at the time. You can do anything you want to, Dawn, you can do anything. It doesn't matter. You've just got to believe it. If you don't believe it, it won't happen. If you believe it, it will happen. You've got to believe it. And if you believe it, anything can happen. And that was her mindset. And I adopted that mindset. I've got everything around me here. The law of attraction, freedom and mastery, believe it, write it into existence. I'm very much into all that.
Yeah, me too.
And that's another woman who helped me. There was a bit of a sad story to that story, but I'm going to let people read the book for that one. The ending of that wasn't very great, and not because of her, but because another member of the family, put me in a really horrible situation, and broke the most personal trust you can break on a young girl, through drinking, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. And so when I confronted and when I went to Torrens, and he was so masterful in making us believe it was all lies and it wasn't true. And so I left with my bag because I couldn't stay there. I didn't feel safe. And it was a horrible situation because I loved her. But she was a woman that helped me and believed in me, and I still love her to this day. But he was a drunk, and she knew that as well. But he wasn't very nice when he was drunk. So that was my only and one other time I spent a night homeless with my bags. I had nowhere to go. I just had to go.
Wow.
Because I
What was
didn't
that
feel...
like?
Well, in Amelia's story, I talk about a favourite place that myself and my brother escaped to when life got tough. Before we went into care, we used to visit. There was an old, it's in Shropshire. It looked like, in my memory, it looked like an old stately home or an old Georgian building, perhaps huge, but big enough to have its own orchard and a sundial in the back garden. But it was derelict. It had been empty and overgrown, trees grown out of it and everything for decades. Well, years, let's say years. And that was our go-to. It had a lake as well in front of it. So it had its own lake, an orchard at the back, and all these boarded up windows and everything. And we used to go and play down there, skim stones in the lake. It was a safety place. But the orchard provided us with food all day because it had apples, damsons, pears. We scrumped. I don't know if people know what that word means today. But
Yeah.
yeah, scrumping for fruit. For those that don't know, is you just go and get a bag and you climb up trees and you pick apples and pears and damsons and plums and fill up your bag and, and you take it home and, a lot of parents at the time would make apple pies and all these gorgeous puddings and everything and jam from them. So yeah, we scrumped and we used to sit under the sundial and it was a proper solid stone. I think it's stone or slab. I don't know. A very old kind of stuff. Anyway, it was this beautiful big sundial. Always fascinated me. I've used it in a couple of fictional stories. It fascinated me that much. I've used the orchard as well in fictional stories. Anyway, I went back there on my own and luckily it was summer and it was still empty. And I slept under an apple tree. It all sounds very, I don't know, sort of movie-like, but it wasn't, and it didn't feel it at the time. It was just nice weather. I had a bag. I had to decide my next move, and that was the most important decision I had to make. Where was I going to go? I had a few savings, not enough to rent a place on my own, had no deposit, no nothing, no internet, no mobile phone, no Google, so you have nothing.
Yeah.
So where do you get your information sources from? The library was miles away. So I had nowhere to go. I had no advice to seek. I didn't know who to go to. So I was slept under an apple tree that night, woke up the next morning, made one of the worst and best decisions of my life. Now I can say that, but it didn't feel it at the time. Had an apple for breakfast and I had to do the one thing I didn't want to do ever again in my entire life and go back to my mum's house and ask her to allow me to stay while I figured it out. I was older, I was bigger, but for me, she was a huge monster when I was a child. I feared her so much. To be honest, even to this day, thought, if there's talk of her, if there's thoughts of her, like my brother will give me information. I felt that feeling of needing to crumble and hide, it's the effect is long lasting. When I approached her door, homeless with a bag, a few £100 in my pocket, which I'd saved for quite a while. When she opened the door, I think she was shocked to see me as I would see her. But she was tiny. I was 5'5.5", and she was barely 5 foot. And skinny and tiny, this tiny little thing in a pair of shorts and teeth. I didn't know. I had visions of this giant opening the door, but she wasn't a giant. And that's the effects one can have on you mentally, And it was just this tiny, small woman in front of me who kind of looked quite vulnerable herself. It was the most weirdest meeting of my entire life. I did stay. She was very difficult. The bolts were still on the doors. There were still bolts on bed. Although it's a new house she'd moved to since the one we lived on prior. She had this new build and she owned the house and she'd done quite well while we were in care, to be quite honest. And she had a really nice 4-bedroom house, but there was still bolts on all bedroom doors. But there was no one there but her husband and her. Why? And I asked this question mentally, was like, why? I don't know why. It was just such a weird thing to witness years and years later when there's no kids in the house. So anyway, I spotted that straight away. My heart sank. I immediately removed the bolt from the room I was going. I thought, I'm an adult now. You're not locking me in the room. But I was also a big adult who could defend myself. And I knew who she was. And there was no apology, no nothing. And I didn't stay there for very long. And that's all in the book. But that's where I connected Julian, my brother, who is called Jake in the book. We reconnected during that time as well. After years of being separated, which is very, very difficult. And he had a really difficult time. I think mentally he wasn't who I was. It had affected him mentally a great deal. And it still has to this day. He's not fared as well as me, but I know I took care of him. once I did well, I kind of brought him along with me and gave him my first house to live in for a few years. And
Wow.
took him out of a situation. When I got married and moved in with not moved in, but when me and my husband got a house together in a different area for schooling purposes, as all parents know, you look for the school and the sort of best. I couldn't sell the house in my first house that I bought as an independent woman to give myself that secure and safety of a roof that no one could ever take away from me and make me move and all that kind of stuff. So I rented it out, and then the people left eventually, because people move on and get their own places. And my brother was going through a really, really hard time, and he needed a place of tranquility, and my house was it. I thought, well, look, you can live there. Them two. I'll take it at the estate agents. I'll take that. The ad can come down. You can live there, because behind it were just fields and fields and fields and cornfields. And there's a little town with a church and bells and a beautiful little place where he could find himself. And he lived there for about 3 or 4 years until he found himself and got himself back on his feet. So I did what I could for him, and he's done what he can in different ways for me too. We've been there for each other. And of course, I lived my dream. I started writing, holding down a modelling job in my 20s. That I used that to buy the house while working full time.
Wow.
And in accounts, which I hated because I'm no good at maths. I hated it, and I was weirdly good at the job. I don't know how, but I'm no good at maths. But I worked in sort of accounts and worked my way up, as well, quite well, quite high. But I think what it is, I'm very good at learning on the job. I pay attention to details and I teach myself. If I don't know something, power of the internet now. At that point,
Yeah.
the internet was there. To me, it was such a magic tool. I just felt like, I can know anything now. I don't know this. Right. YouTube.
Yeah.
Fit course. And I did it. I was obsessed with it. So if I didn't know something, I just taught. I went on and I taught myself. I'd pay for a course. So I'd do this. I put myself through business school. I put myself through night school. Get all my
Wow.
own levels at the time. All the things I needed to help me on my way through life. But my goal wasn't in the business world at all. I'm a creative. I'm not sort of that businessy sort of minded, and I wanted to write books. So I had a few half-finished stories, and I thought I spent about a good few years put notes from my journal into Amelia's story, and going back to visit all the children's homes that I was prior, and I had to ask permission, and I had to get all my notes. Permission from the NSPCC and social services. I needed access to all my care notes, which was within my right to do. And they gave me access. And I had to go to the records department. I spent days there and, photocopying everything and take it back home with me. So I had an accurate picture. I needed to match that to my memory. Certain things that I wasn't sure about. So I thought, that can't possibly be true. Am I imagining that? I mean, it seems so bad. And then you read the notes, social services notes, care worker notes, all sorts of different notes from all different, and you just think, God, but it was worse. And then I found out new stuff that I hadn't been told that happened to me when I was young, all sorts of different stuff. Not that kind of thing, but just things my mother had done to us children, to save her own reputation, and hiding us in our room was just one of the terrible things she'd done. There was other things that came to light that blew my mind, and I couldn't believe a human being could be so cruel. It's cruel. It was cruel. But you know what? I did leave the mindset. My destiny was in my own hands, and I left my children's home. My destiny was continuing, and I knew every decision I made, they're not behind me anymore. They can't tell me what to do. Tell me I can't. Tell me that's not good enough for me. I'm not good enough for that. I make the decisions. I'm not going to be a drug addict, and I'm not going to be a prostitute. And I don't want to do that. I want to do something, and I want to make a difference. So I wrote Amelia's story. I wrote other books. Oh, God, it was the best thing I ever did when I turned from, I'd say it being a hobby, you could say, it being a full-time professional. job, professional author, and putting my work out there to the public and publishing books. And then after Amelia's story, I went on to write fiction. And I've never looked back since. I had a family, I had my husband, I've got a beautiful 16-year-old daughter. And life's been brilliant since. It's been great, you know. That section of my life was my young life. I've only briefed it. I know I've missed out loads of different things, and it's all in the book and stuff, but, you know, people can go read it if they want, and they think it'll make a difference. It's there to help as well, inspire. I wanted to inspire people of any, doesn't matter what situation you're in. It doesn't matter if you're rich and you're mentally drained and unhappy, if you're poor, and it doesn't matter. Domestic violence, it doesn't have barriers and levels. It doesn't seek out a certain portion of society. Every single person, no matter what part, no matter, you know, whether you're blessed financially, whether you've had a brilliant upbringing, whether you've had a terrible upbringing, domestic violence affects people from all walks of life. And I like to feel, because my childhood was more about the domestic violence from institutional base and home base. And I did escape some of the more severe depravity. But the domestic violence was bad enough, and the whole situation. Yeah. And it was my mindset that got me from there to here. And it was Charles Dickens. You need to find something to grab hold of that no one can take away from you, and it's your mind. What you put in there, you know, it's like a dustbin. It's like a great big, no, it's not a dustbin. It's like a warehouse, you know, think bigger, like a warehouse, and it contains, what you fill it with is your choice. You fill it with what you need to fill it with to get you through the next day, no matter how bizarre it seems, no matter how far-fetched. Because when I look back and think to when I was sort of in single-digit numbers, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10, and if someone had said to me, do you know, one day in the future, you're going to be a best-selling author and you're going to be, and all this, that, I would have never believed it. I would have never believed it. And I would have thought, because I did think like that sometimes, and someone like me is never going to do that. I'd never have to write a book. I wouldn't know where to start, you know. I didn't even know what syntax meant or a paragraph, you know. I just know that's how kind of uneducated I was at one point. At one point, you know. All I know is how everything looked and how it read to me. I didn't care about the rest. I didn't care how you put it all together and all that. I just knew this was like magic to me, like magic portals that can deliver you to places of happiness and heaven. And I just wanted to get in there. There I've always had books everywhere. And even now I've got books, I've got tons. In fact, actually, I've probably got a few thousand, to be fair. I've got a lot of them as well. I've got huge.
That's what I aspire to have.
And never throw a book away, because they're all meaningful. If a book hold, you know, I could never part with a book ever. So yeah, I've got loads over the years, and I read all sorts of genres as well. I don't know about you. Do you read lots of genres? Because I need the knowledge of all sorts of different places, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read a lot of non-fiction, but quite a lot of different biographies and autobiographies of different people.
Yeah.
And just, whatever catches my eye, I will start reading. It doesn't matter what genre it necessarily is. Yeah,
I'm the same as well. You know, for books, if it catches me, it's the blurb or the advertisement of it even, or, you know, sometimes that can just be enough to catch my interest. But I do love true stories. I write a lot of fiction now, sorry. I've written many novels, and if I could, I don't know if you've got time, you can ask me any questions you like. I'm doing this, you know, the Survivor series we mentioned when we first got online. That book is based on a lot of knowledge that I gained in my childhood. Those books, they're fiction novels. And that sort of Survivor series is 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy, 3 for girl, as the rhyme goes. Yeah. And each story is tackling a form of abuse. It could be nothing to do with children's homes. It's only one book is, but it's even from a man's point of view, because men suffer domestic violence badly too. And that isn't often highlighted. And I wanted to really highlight that as well. So book 2 is about a man going through kind of domestic violence and financial ruin, the lies of say somebody who is accused of something so hideous that he never did, as the man before him did, who got completely, his life was completely wiped out. His reputation was obliterated, his career, everything gone, and he went to jail, and it was all false. And this woman, she's domestically violent, but she's like a black widow. She could melt the hearts of all men, one of those types. And by the time she's ready to pounce and ruin them, she's kind of been doing it 6 to 12 months before they even know it. And everybody already knows it before he does, because they already believe the narrative she's been feeding secretly and quietly behind the scenes,
Wow.
and they've become her flying monkeys, So that's book 2, and it's from the man's point of view. And I thought that was a very important story to write.
Definitely.
And book 1 is from a woman's point of view. And that's kind of very much like a sleeping with the enemy type of domestic violence, but much more sort of intent. It's almost showing you that, pointing out to the readers the red flags through the narrative of the friend who were trying to save her. So the red flags are pointed out. So each story is focused on some sort of abuse, whether it's financial institution, even ages, women in care homes who get completely ruined by families, and all they're interested in the money, and they get abused in these care homes, and some may die when they shouldn't do, and all that kind of thing. So I try and cover everything from narcissism to domestic violence to child abuse to trauma to mental health, everything. So it's all and it's all the different abuses that cause that. So each story is fictional, really dark, gritty, great stories, but there's a message and there's a point to it, So
yeah, I'll definitely leave links to all of those in the show notes and read some myself for sure. Really, really beautiful stories, Dawn, but your entire life is just, so fascinating and powerful and emotional and inspiring. And I really hope the people listening can take a lot from it. And if there's anyone in a situation or similar situations which you've amazingly described, they can get themselves out of it like you did. And you're truly an outlier, because like you said about all the poor other children that may have just disappeared off the face of the earth, you somehow managed to get through. And the fact that you've been able to give some tips already about reading books and keeping your head down and just believing there's more to life than what people around you may tell you is really important. It's really, really important. And just thank you for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
Obviously there's a lot more. There's a lot more that you can say, but obviously we still want people to read the books. So if they want to find out even more, obviously read the books.
And, I'm on all the socials, and if anybody is in a situation and they're feeling like they just need someone to talk to or chat to or just connect with, just message, drop the DM, and I do get to them. It might not be immediately because I get quite a few, but I do work my way through every single one eventually, and I always respond. And if I can help in any way and give advice, please reach out, and I just, even if you just need some kind words or a bit of inspiration, a kick to move forward, anything, I'll always respond. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And everyone, please do send Dawn a DM, even if it's not to do with, the struggles, just compliments for our work. Please do. Yeah. And 27 books you've written, right?
27. I'm writing 28.
Oh yeah, you're writing the 28th. Yeah. So what keeps you coming back to the page, and how do you stay driven, and what changes each time you start a new story?
Funny enough, I was asked this question recently by a friend. Where do you get your stories from? How do you keep going? And doesn't it get to a point where they just stop and the imagination just gone blank? And I don't know if this. I don't know how it works for the authors, but I always know what my next story is before I finish the current one I'm writing. If it's while I'm writing the current story, that in my mind, something sparks. It could be a conversation between a character, and I'm like, oh my God, could be my next book. I could go that way. Right. Okay. So while I'm writing this book, there's something developing in the far corners of my mind, and another story is developed. Other times, a story can come to me by having coffee in a shop. I'm out with my daughter
Wow.
shopping. I hear an argument on the street. I see a beautiful situation. It could be on the TV. It could be a news item. It can come from anywhere, and it'll spark a tiny spark. And I just think, I've got an idea. And then it starts festering, and it takes root, and it starts growing. And then before I know it, I'm sort of outlining this story based on this one tiny fragmented moment, But so far, fingers crossed. I mean, I've not been stumped yet. Thank God. I've not been stumped yet. So yes, from everyday life, and quite often while I'm writing one book, the story is already filtering and forming for the next book, either in that series or a complete standalone. It's something different, which I'll have to put aside if I'm in the middle of a series. I just think, okay, I'll bank that. I'll come back to that when this series is finished or something like that. But I get great joy, and I'm a much better writer now than I was 20 years ago, because you develop. And I've got this amazing, so amazing. My editor is absolutely fantastic, Scott Berry. He's a great guy. He is a great editor, and I've learned a great deal from him. And we help each other. We've got this bestsellingreads.com website that he formed it, but there's a group of us who are founding members, and we're all in that together. And he's got some lovely, lovely information about all sorts of different things. A very, very well-educated man. He's my editor, and I'm proud to say, and he edits my books. He edits my later books. Probably my last 5 or 6 books he edits, and he's editing the whole of this series as well. And I'd like to think I'm quite an accomplished and pretty well polished writer now. And all authors say this. They all do. Even James Patterson, even the most amazing ones. But you could send your completed draft to your editor, a really good editor, and it comes back and it's just read everywhere. And there's side comments, and you're like, no, I read it through 150 times. Well, not really, but you read it so many times.
Yeah.
How did I not see that? How did I not see that? Oh my goodness. And they'll pick out where you may have, overlooked plot holes, or the plot or plots are completed, or silly little things, where you might have put a comma instead of something else, and or an M dash where it doesn't belong. And you say, no, that's an M dash there. It needs to be right here. And little things that even very accomplished authors who've written 27 books made stupid mistakes. And that's why editors are important. But I've learned so much about character development, all sorts of things like sentence structure, syntax, and all that kind of stuff. And I've become a better writer, and authors become better writers because of their editors. If they're good editors, there are great editors out there, but you've got some not so great, who are probably, not really editors, but, more proofreaders. Yeah. And that, there's a distinction that sort of, you're either a proofreader or an editor. You can be both, but if you're an editor, that requires a lot of skill. And you need a good editor. And don't do it alone and think you've got it all and you've caught every single thing, because you really haven't. James Patterson and Stephen King, even they don't. They write books. They have to send their books to editors. No one's ever perfect. No one book will ever be perfect. And even if you have had it written by the most incredible editor in the world, there will be somebody out there who will find a comma still out of place. There's some very, very astute readers. But my editor's an incredible editor, and he's editing my Survivor series right now, and it's just incredible. I love his work, and I actually smile when I get it back, and I just think, oh my God, you're so thorough. Let's go and work through this. And I'm going through, and I'm shouting down to my hubby, oh my God, I feel so I made the most ridiculous mistake. But it's all part of the job, and it's healthy and it's good. And you take that feedback and you work with it and listen to what they're saying, because they know. And they've got a whole history of books behind them that are bestsellers that are doing great because of their editing. So yes, my book, I've learned from my editors. I've learned from going from book to book. I do an extensive amount of research. In fact, with some books, I've spent more time researching the subject matters in some books throughout the years than I have actually writing the actual novel. The research and
Wow.
intent then goes on for a long 3 to 6 months sometimes. It's very tricky subjects, and I'm of the I have to get it right, because
Yeah.
I don't want to lead readers into a false sense of anything. I want to mislead them with information that I've not took the time to investigate thoroughly. And that is really, really important to make sure, even fiction stories, if they're about subjects that are happening now in the real world or based on current affairs, you got to get your facts right. You got to deliver it correctly, because there are very impressionable people out there, and younger people will be reading that work and take that as knowledge, and they'll be like, oh my goodness. And if you imagine, they go look online and they're like, well, that's not right. So yes, research is one of the most important things. And I've learned a great deal. I'm still learning every day. So
Yeah. That's the best thing to do. Keep learning every single day. How do you avoid gold medal winners syndrome? Have you heard about that, where because obviously you've achieved so much success, and a lot of the time these people that achieve a lot of success, the arc is kind of like, whoa, a massive, I won a gold medal, and then boom, they can't keep the motivation and keep the consistency once they've reached their desired goal. Yeah, when they get to a certain level. So once you've become a best-selling author. Oh, really? Yeah.
That's escaped me. I usually catch these things. I mean, I'm on social medias and I'm on TikTok, and you see all the trend and everything's going. That one's escaped me, but I don't really. I'll be honest, Jacob. I don't know if it. I'm a Gen X. I'm of a certain age. I really don't get. I don't buy into sort of anything like that. I do what I do because I love it. If one book's successful, great. If another one isn't, fine. The next one probably will be. And it really doesn't matter. Because, I'm always going to write. With Barbara Cartland, she lived just to what age and was still writing novels into her 90s. I know that'll be me, because it's not just a job. It's kind of like a hobby. It's like for athletes who go jogging in the morning, So for me, writing is that for me, and it's a hobby. It's my kind of hug rug. It's it's everything, and it's my mental health as well, because it's so good for my mind. And no, I don't think that will affect me. I kind of don't have that kind of mindset where
That's good.
if I got to a certain point, oh my god, now I've got to do better, or oh my god, what's going to happen? Oh my god, and it's because I don't look at my work like that. And I know there are failures and accomplishers, and I've had both, and I've lived and suffered through both. And I just think, right, okay, if there was one book that was particularly, if there was one book that did not so well, and I'm like left with, oh, I don't know, did I go wrong here? Was it the subject? Was it the book? Was it what? And you look and you just think, okay, well, next time I'll do something different. I'll work around, I'll read it, I'll have a look, and look at some constructive criticism. See what get some constructive criticism from people outside of your network who will give you some decent feedback, and say, look, I'm not sure what happened here. This one didn't do so well. So yeah, I'd like to understand why, so I don't make the same mistakes. And you learn, and then the next time you've got this great book and it's doing fantastic. And that probably happens also in your earlier years as an author, because you're finding your way, you're finding your niche, and you're finding your genre. Unless you go into a multi-genre umbrella, like I'm under a multi-genre umbrella. So I don't want to be limited into what I can write based on a genre that I've sort of promoted my whole business on, or my whole author world on. So I like to write the book that's in my head at the time, and the genre will fit around the book, not the book around a genre. So I don't want to just be a romance or a domestic thriller writer or a non-fiction writer, because I have all sorts of different stories, and I have all sorts of different ideas, and want to write under the umbrella of an author, a multi-genre author that can cover many different topics, whether it's fact or fiction based, or rather than, sort of reducing myself into this single genre. I would call a cage, for me, it would be a cage, because I'd be like, break me out. I want to write
Yeah.
but I can't, kind of thing. But I'll tell you something, there are some incredible authors out there. Indie authors are smashing it right now. They are incredible. And if you look at their marketing, how they're marketing their books, like better than the marketing professionals for bigger companies or Big Six, they are doing incredible. They need to be studied. They're amazing. They're brilliant. And they're doing what they're doing and what they have to do, because there's no one they haven't got that business. They haven't got that team behind them. Because indie authors, self-published authors, we have to do our own marketing, our own accounts. We have to work within our own budget, whether it's something or nothing, depending on where you are. And oh my goodness, they're doing incredible things. They really are. There's some incredible talent out there. I've read it, I've seen it, I'm bearing with. It's all around you. It's taking a whole shift and a whole turn. And also, as well, there's quite a lot of famous writers who, with some of their books, later books, have chosen to self-publish it themselves and not go through their publishing company. So it's kind of been adopted. It's a model being adopted by a lot of well-known and respected as well authors that have been around for decades. I'm sure Stephen King self-published a book as well, and J.K. Rowling, and all that kind of thing. So it kind of gives a stamp of approval in a way. It doesn't matter if you've got a big publishing deal or whether you are a self-published author. You can do both, or you can do one or the other. And the talent is not diminished in either way. The work involved, however, that is a whole different thing, because the work involved, if you're self-published, is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And it's more afterwards, the hard work comes afterwards, because it's all the people need to know about your book. You've got to get it out there, and you've got to do all this marketing and promoting and everything else. And I tell you what, you go on TikTok, you look at Book Talk, anywhere like that. Wow, they're killing it. They're just doing incredible stuff. You might need to cut out that word if this goes on TikTok. They don't like that word, do they?
What do they not? Oh, killing it. Oh, I don't know. I haven't. It should be all right. It should be
cut
fine.
that bit out if you need to. They don't like to use the words. I've discovered this because I'm on TikTok, and it isn't all. You're not allowed to use if you're not allowed to use dead, say bread, or don't say murder, say unalive. Because a lot of
Unalive.
You have that. So if you ever listen to TikToks, people discussing this or discussing that, and they're saying, they were unalived. I remember at first I thought, what a silly way to explain that when it's murder or something like that. I didn't get it. It's like, I'm going to vex and I don't. There's so much new stuff going on. And then it was explained to me, don't say murder, you'll get your account banned, or don't say, I don't know if that's just on lives or whatever. Or don't say dead, use bread. Don't say blood, use mud. And then, weirdly, when you're scrolling down your TikTok, suddenly you're seeing TikToks about this thing and people using the word unalived and bread and all that. And it's like, now those other TikToks I've been watching that I thought were really weird make sense now. Why they were using these like odd terms for certain words. So you've always got something new to navigate. See, the power of the internet, and there's a way around everything, obviously, clearly. But my mind is always full of imagination, and it's not died on me yet, thank God. So long may it continue. And some books do better than others. I'm really on it. Some books do great. Some books do just okay. Other books seem to just fly off the shelves with no effort whatsoever. And then other books that require a ton of marketing. Like you feel like you're pushing every day and every day and every day. And you just about do okay. So sometimes it's where it hits. How much you put into it. I don't know. But I've coasted along quite nicely, I think. I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay, and I may continue. But medal thing, I don't think I'm one of those kind of people. I'm just happy to write. It either goes well or it doesn't. And if I get a medal, great. If I don't, that's okay. Maybe another time.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. That's the perfect mentality to have, definitely. And talking about the TikTok thing, I spoke with Scott about like Hitler and war crimes, so I might have to censor those clips unless I've really posted them.
You can, I mean, you have a look, just have a look at other TikToks like that, if they're talking about that
Yeah,
kind of thing. 'Cause it's strange, like you can talk about World War One, World War Two, and the Holocaust and all that, but they're very sensitive about the word murder, death, and blood. But that's why thank God only recently aware of this.
yeah.
Because I had a live, I did my first TikTok live. It was like one of those collabs. So
Oh yeah,
a book talker interviewed me, and then they sort of, brought me in live, sent me a link, and it was just I've never done that before.
that's
Um,
cool.
and I was educated on, don't use this word, don't use that word, because it'll get taken down, or it might get, what do you call it? A warning. You get a warning or something.
Uh,
And that's when I learned, and that was only literally in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So I was very careful what language I use, what words I use, because I know you put your interviews sort of in various places. And I thought, put it on TikTok. I don't want it to get taken down because I've been, a bit neglectful with this word or that word. So I've tried not to use certain words and terminology so it doesn't get taken down.
yeah, much appreciated, because I would have had no idea and just like let it be. Yeah. What are some common excuses you hear young people make when they have this big dream, but they haven't actually done anything to start it? I think that's quite a big problem for a lot of like teenagers. It's definitely a problem I used to have. You
Yeah.
used to dream big and you just wouldn't do anything. What are some kind of,
But I
what's some
think
advice you have
advice.
for them?
Okay. If you've got a dream, but you lack the motivation, there's a very big correlation. Like this big dream, you've got all these ideas, but when they realize I think when they realize what's involved, and when they realize what's involved, it's like, it almost seems impossible. I think, like, I'm never
Mm,
going to be able to do that. That's too much. I just really, so that I think sometimes I want it easier. Um, they, I think the effort that needs putting in kind of overwhelms them, and
yeah,
they'll put
yeah,
that dream to bed, and they'll move on to something. They'll forget about it, and then they'll come back to it. And you know, I think it can be motivation, it can be effort, it can be lack of belief in themselves. But nothing great comes from lack of effort. Nothing.
mm,
Nothing will ever be handed on a plate. It just won't.
so
And if it
true.
is, it will be
Yeah,
temporary. It will only be temporary. And anything worth fighting for, any dream worth, following, it requires the most incredible effort and hard work. And yes, some people might say, oh, this happened easily for you. There are the very, very lucky few in the world where some things happen very, very easily and but for the majority of people, a dream worth fighting for is a dream worth putting in every ounce of, but you can. I know it seems daunting, but don't put it to bed. If you're young out there and you've got this dream and you're just overwhelmed and by all that's involved in making your dream happy, imagine how you'll feel once you've done it and you've
yeah,
completed it and you've put all that effort in. You did that. You've done that. You pushed through all those negative thoughts in your mind and you did it. Imagine how you'll feel when you've got that completed dream in front of you. You will have done that. And that's the payoff of effort. And there's no greater feeling than seeing your work out there, and the blood and sweat that you had to suffer to get it out there. You can go broke, you can go bankrupt, and so many people you might even, you can just lose a great deal. Yeah, you can in some respects, you can. But is it worth giving up a dream because of effort? And it might be hard. So I know it's easier said than done, and motivation can be really hard when there's so much going on in the world, especially right now, especially today. It can demotivate people. People think, well, what's the point? The world might not be here in 5 years, and there's so much going on, and so much of what's going on can pull people down, especially young people, especially with, they're so impressionable. And
mm,
easily kind of swept away with all sorts of different things that's going on, that they just feel like, will there be a world in 10 years? I mean, gosh, it affects me when you're going through and you see all this stuff that's going on. And I just think, oh my gosh, is this going to happen? Is this really going to happen? Would this happen? So I know I'm really strong-minded, and I that anything like that just wouldn't affect me, not now. But I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, social media had been about when I was starting out, it would probably affect me. It may have prolonged my journey, prolonged my dream, and might have took longer. Who knows? I can't answer that. I just know the mindset I have. Just do it. Don't allow anything to stop you, not your mind. Fill your mind with what you want it to be filled with. You are responsible for filling this 100%. And it deserves to be filled with great stuff.
Yeah.
It really does. It's incredible. We know so little about the mind, and the more positive stuff you fill it with, the more effects it has, not just mentally, but physically as well. Your body, your mind, everything's all connected. I've suffered with depression over the years. I have. So I know what it's like to be super positive and, be in a depressive state. And I've pushed myself out of that. Not everyone can, but I understand what it's like to be there, and how you've got all these dreams, but you can't get out of bed. You sit there, you can spend the whole day in bed. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be amazing. And before you know it, the day's gone. And you've not even seen hours pass by. And that can go on and on and on. And that can be depression. And it can be so many different things. And it's horrible. And people don't understand. No, you can't just get out of bed when you're in that state. You don't understand. No, I'm not physically ill. And there's nothing wrong. Or at this moment in time, it's almost like you are stuck. And you need a push, but you don't know where that push is going to come from. You could have every reason to get out of bed, but you're in this mindset and you can't get out of it. And I've heard so many stories like that, and I've seen so many situations like that. Just remind yourself, no matter how bad it gets, no matter how negative you feel, or what thoughts are going in your head that's stopping you from reaching your dreams, fill it with as much good stuff as you can. Focus on positive and focus on all the good stuff around you and all the positive things. And most of all, focus on you, that you can do it, and believe in yourself. You have to believe it. Here's a good way of doing that. Do you remember? Some may have not, and I know it's all fantasy, but occasionally, I remembered a good Christmas occasionally. And I remember Christmas Eve one night, I believed in Santa Claus that much. I believed in him, and I just knew I was going to get a present, or 2 presents, or 10 presents. You just believed in Santa that much that you went to bed with that feeling of belief and wonder. You remember that feeling? Believe that feeling, feel that feeling, draw that on that memory of the belief that you knew Santa was coming, and you'd wake up and there'd be a present somewhere because you believed Santa and the whole thing. So moving on into your adult life, and you've got a dream now, and you don't believe in Santa anymore, but that feeling, you believe the feeling. You believe how it made you feel when you did believe it. And that's belief. You believed that, and that feeling, you remember that wondrous feeling. Feeling is the drive that drives all dreams. When you believe that much that you almost feel it in the pit of your stomach, that's you believing in yourself. So that's what you have to do, and put the hard work in and believe in yourself. Doesn't matter if everyone else doesn't believe. It doesn't matter. Don't let other people put you off.
Yeah.
Just believe in yourself, and believe it so much you can almost feel it. You can almost touch it, close it, your eyes, imagine it, feel it, and then make it come into existence.
It's really good advice. Yeah. I like the mantra, belief comes before ability. It's kind of popped up in a lot of different ways through the biographies and autobiographies I've read, and they say the exact same things as you do. The power of visualization, the power of kind of positive repetitions in your mind, and really believing you're the millionaire or the best-selling author before you even are it. That's such a common thread among these outliers that I've noticed, and it's really kind of positively confirming that you are saying the same thing coming from a person like you.
Yeah, because I knew one day I would be. I believed it. I just felt it. I could almost feel it, and
Yeah.
yeah, I just really believed it, like it was mine almost. I'm a huge believer of the law of attraction, and you know, I believe if you believe in something enough, it will happen. You don't know
Yeah.
how, when. You don't need to know how or when. You don't need to know what's working to align to make all this happen for you, but it will just happen. You just got to believe it, put it out there, and then forget about it, and then it'll be done. Consider it done.
Mm.
So reading some positive books are good, on law of attraction,
Yeah.
and all that self-belief, you know, whether you believe in it or not, the positivity of the words themselves stick and have an effect. It's all
Yeah.
positive energy. And at the end of the day, we're all just a ball of energy. It's just, are we good energy or bad energy? Do we attract this or do we attract that? And I could go on for this subject for hours. That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah. We'll have to do episode 2 on that. We'll have to do round 2. What would you say to the person who does believe in their dreams and is doing things to achieve it, but they may have not got that huge result yet, or they haven't fully achieved some of the bigger goals, or they're still, in their, hometown, and they feel like they've changed as a person, but reality hasn't caught up? Have you ever heard of that thing where reality lags by like 2 years? What would you say to them groups of that kind of person that is in that situation?
This is almost like, I don't know if it's the right quote, like a small town syndrome. So you can live in a small town, you've outgrown it completely. You want to move on, you need to get somewhere and get there, but you haven't got there yet, and you feel like you've done everything you can to get there, but these blocks are just consistently there, and you're fed up of doing the high jump, only to fall down on your knees, and it's like, what? Come on, please, give me a break. I can't. Yeah, I know I've told my story. It sounds like it all happened so quickly, but I came across stumbling blocks like that as well. And at times you could just feel so pulled down, and you'd think, God, is this worth it? And then you've got to just remind yourself, look, doors open for a reason and close for a reason. And there is a door you're not meant to walk through just yet. Because you're being, so you go somewhere, there's a door, it's closed on you, it's closed in your face. You feel like your dream or the effort has been hampered. And that door's closed. Like, oh my God, what do I do now? Where do I go now? That's just ruined everything. And that's been shut for a reason. You just don't see it at that moment in time. But it's been shut for a reason, because there's a better door for you to walk through down the road. It's just not your time to go through it yet. And you've just got to be patient and stick with it, and don't lose hope, and don't lose that belief in yourself. Don't think, God, this is never going to happen. Once those thoughts start sinking in, there's stuff, and you don't want to think those into reality. Just keep believing, okay, that door closed. It's closed. It was meant to close. Because that wasn't the best door for me to go through. I had loads of doors closed over the years. Oh my goodness, I could open a shop and sell doors. They were meant to close for a reason, because at the time I might have cried. I'm like, what? Can't happen. And then a year or two later, it's like, oh, I'm so glad that happened now, because look, I wouldn't be there now. So just think like that. You have to go through so many doors, and so many doors have to close. It's just not your time to get through that door yet, because you've got to go through all these loopholes first. And all the time, you don't realize it, but it's teaching you something as well. And it's teaching you to be humble, and to accept what cannot be, because it's not the right time. There's still more for you to do in this moment before you get to that door. So every time you go across the high jump and you fall flat, just know that door's not ready for you to go through it yet. It's just not open yet. So when it's open, it'll be ready for you to walk through. I don't know if that made any sense, but
it makes sense.
It made sense in my head.
No.
That's kind of how I visualize everything, every fail. I won't call them fails, actually. They're not fails. They're learning curves, because nobody become successful without having a huge amount of failure first. It's the
For sure.
failures that get you to where you're going to, because you learn from those. They're not failures; they're learning curves. And you go through all of those, and you hear of people in all sorts of positions, who worked out of grandma's cellar with nothing until they were in their early 30s, and they're now billionaires or something, or they discovered, I don't know, the next breakthrough medical thing or something. And you listen to some of their life stories, you think, oh, wow, how is that incredibly impossible? It's just amazing. And I can imagine they had 100 so doors shut on them too. So,
slammed in their face.
Slammed in their face and longed in, because it felt like that for me sometimes. I'm sure it does for you and for loads of other people. And it's just not ready for you to walk through. It's being prepared. Imagine it like a new house, right?
Yeah.
It's empty, but it needs to be prepared for your arrival. So think of it like that.
And have you heard of the lonely chapter?
No, I haven't. Go on, enlighten me.
Well, it's quite self-explanatory, but I'm sure you've gone through it as well. It's kind of related to this topic where, like, again, you've changed, but your reality hasn't. And therefore, because you've grown so much as a person, you no longer speak the same language as the people around you that you may once have done in the past. Have you experienced that before?
Yes, but I didn't know it was called that. I didn't know that was another name for it. I have heard that from a lot of awakened people. You grow spiritually. You might view the world differently from what you once did. Almost like you're seeing things as they're meant to be seen, but you kind of had shutters on before, and everything feels different. Now you've got all this new kind of knowledge, and you don't know what to do with it because no one else understands, because they're not there. They're still there, and you've kind of just jumped, if you like, and so it feels kind of similar to when you listen to awakened people speaking, and they feel that they're now kind of don't know how to just sit and have discussions like they normally would, or go to lunch and just talk about sort of the shopping trip or this, because they've got, it's all meaningless to them now, because they've gained all this other knowledge and they're awakened in other ways, and all that doesn't mean anything to them anymore. Because so there's I've seen lots of online discussions and talks about that kind of thing as well. So yes, it's kind of a similar subject as well, I think. And I think some people inevitably do progress spiritually and worldly, and are awakened in many different ways for many different reasons, and then they kind of feel like they don't belong there anymore, and they graduated so far ahead that they don't know how to be around even family and friends who just think, what are you talking about? Go on. What are you talking about? Let's get The Simpsons on. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
On, and the other person's sitting there, and all they want to do is have these deep, intense, and wonderfully, mind-blowing discussions, but they've got nobody to have them with, because nobody understands what, they're thinking or they're talking about, or the similar thing. And yes, would you say something like that?
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Yeah. What would your advice be for that? My advice would be start a podcast. But which so you can speak to people who yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
poetry. So yeah, I mean, I write a lot of poetry as well. I've got a couple of poetry books out there, but I write about a lot of the world and current affairs in some of my poetry as well. I kind of write a lot about real life, and if I've got a conversation or a discussion that I do have from time to time, and I just said, no one's going to want to talk about this subject. They just won't get it. They're just going to be like, or what are you talking about? No, I don't understand. I don't get that, or something, and not everybody, we've all going through a journey, but not every single thing you're learning and experiencing will be understood by other people, because we're on different journeys, whether it's spiritual, whether it's whatever. And I write poetry. I will put my bizarre sort of mind ramblings and knowledge and, awakenings, whatever. I put it in poetry and quotes. I write tons of quotes. I've written this quote book. Oh, look, Midnight Musing. Anyway, amazing quotes in there. A lot of them very life affirming and sort of awakening at some points, because I think it's really hard. I think it's really not. I think it's quite naive to believe that you go through a whole life and not awaken in some area about something, whether it's you believed in something, whether it be a system, whether it's a government, whether it's a political agenda, and you always thought it was one way. And one day, you know, we've all been there. You wake up and you discover, hell no, no, no. And then you go down all these little sort of rabbit holes and discover it was never the case in the first place. It means this, or this is what was really going on, or, you know, like all sorts of subjects, you know, when you learn the truth about certain things that, you know, one is not allowed to discuss, sort of thing. And you become awakened to that, and you just think, oh no. It's got to be one thing everyone at some point in their life and beginning to end has that a moment of rude awakening. It doesn't matter what it is. Like I said, it doesn't matter. It could be alien, it could be political, it could be, I don't know, it could be a person, it could be somebody turned out to be completely different to what you thought, and involved in all sorts of different things you didn't believe was possible. And it's like, I mean, it rocks you to the core, and you just it makes you vulnerable in some sort of way, because it shapes the fabric of what you once believed in that one particular moment, and it's changed something. And in that, inevitably will change your journey a little bit, even if you don't think so at the time. It does. It changes you little by little. Everything you learn, everything you discover, everything new truths you come across and discover that maybe you thought was something completely different. It all shapes you, and it shapes your journey and belief system, and makes you wise. And I think that's why there's a lot of wise old people, because they've gone through all these different moments, and they have this collective wisdom once they get 70, 80. And, you know, when you look back in the old days, and you had the older wise person, and used to blow people away, and in dinner parties or whatever, with all this knowledge, and people would be, why did they know that? Why did they see that coming? And it's just a collective lifetime of wisdom and knowledge gained, and many, you know, moments of awakening here, there, and everywhere, I would imagine.
Yeah. Knowledge compounds. And I think the more times you have those awakenings, even if they feel, which they often do, quite unsettling, you have that cognitive dissonance during the process of it happening, in the long term, it's actually just you growing as a person. And I think the more you have of those, the better, even if it's unsettling in the short term.
Totally agree. It is growing. And sometimes it can just seem, I know you know, you hear conversations and amongst all different generations, and it is unsettling. I think sometimes people, they can be afraid of the knowledge that they acquire, or news that they acquire, or truths that they acquire. And it's all part of growing. Sometimes it takes some people longer to reach a certain point, and others are farther ahead, because sometimes you're not mentally equipped to accept this, or to learn this, or to understand this, that, or what, you know. And then you reach a point where, oh, I understand now. Now that makes sense. It seemed crazy 10 years ago. Well, it didn't make sense because it just didn't make sense. And then it does make sense later on. And that's just, you've grown, your knowledge gained and acquired, and you see the full circle. Whereas sometimes in life, you at some points in your life, you're only seeing, you know, maybe a 90-degree angle of something, and not the full circle. And the older you get, and no, I'm not going to say that, because it's not just that. I mean, goodness me, if you met my daughter, I'll tell you, she's so more intelligent than me. I don't know who she got her brain from, but she can blow. She makes me feel really silly sometimes. So it's not about just gaining wisdom as you get older. It's just about some people. It doesn't matter whether you're 20, 30, 40. There's so many people who are 20 years younger than me, much more sort of tuned in to certain things, and so clever, and blow me away. It blows my mind. You're one of them, actually. Your podcasts are insane. You're an incredible person, and blew my mind, really, some of your podcasts. And that's what I mean. You learn from everybody, all ages and from all walks of life, and you just take it all in. It all helps everything. Um,
Mm.
yeah. The knowledge gained. It's not about getting to a certain age, because some people can get to 70 and just haven't learned anything. You know,
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean. So that is just not. It's just not that. It's just those who pay attention.
Mm.
And some people have a certain mindset and take it all in and
Definitely.
soak it all up and make sense of it all and find the balance as well. Because, there's so much knowledge to take in around the world, especially look at the times we're living in. Especially since COVID, which was a very turbulent time, and really, there's a lot of mental health going on during that time, a hell of a lot. And people didn't know. It messed with a lot of people's heads, and I think it did. It was the biggest shake-up this world has ever had, to have a whole world locked down. In fact, it still blows my mind now when I think about it. But
Yeah.
it does. And people locked themselves. They didn't know what to do with themselves. It really messed with their psyche. But a lot of people also found themselves. It awakened a lot of people up to who they truly were, what they wanted out of
Yeah.
life. Gave them a kick up the bum, like how soon everything will be taken away from you. They freed them, everything. So it was, it had its positives and negatives, obviously.
Mm.
But the amount of knowledge that some people have, just naturally have this ability to soak everything up and make sense of it all and just know it, they're just, I soak it all up. I could listen to people like that. My daughter's friendship group, they're 16 and a half. And when I listen to their telephone conversations, I was nothing like that at 16. I knew nothing. How do they know all this? How they articulate everything, and it blows my mind. And they're 16.
Yeah.
So age, it's never just a factor. In some instances, of course, because there's only certain things gained at certain points. But I'm telling you something. The generation of the youth today, every age group has the negatives and the positives, but their level of intelligence, I think, far exceeds any generation before it. They seem brighter, cleverer, but much more self-assured in some ways. And their level of learning ability is incredible. Is that down to what's available? They're not, the Google, the internet, or I don't know. They've got something previous generations don't have. And I'm talking older generation, like your Gen X and your 70s and 80s and sort of 90s. Beyond, from the 90s onwards, really. Obviously, we've got different sides. You've got, but I don't hold collectively. They're so much more intelligent, clever than we ever were. And I listen and I pay attention. I just think, I listen to all these podcasts, and they're like in the teens and 20s, and I just think, they're going to rock the world. These people are going to change the world. They're just incredible, and they should be embraced and pushed forward. And I love it. I just think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
The only thing that might demotivate, obviously, is like I said, there can be a certain apathy, occasionally. Or not apathy, maybe it's not the wrong word. Easily discouraged. That's what I'm looking for. It was another word I was looking for, but they might be easily discouraged. And that's only sometimes, as we talked about before, when the effort seems to outweigh the prize, but they don't realise the prize is far bigger than the effort. It's just that they can't
That's so
see it.
good.
They
That's
just can't.
so good.
Thank you.
Yeah. The effort outweighs the prize, but they just can't see the size of the prize yet. That's such a good way of summarizing it. That's really good. I'm going to keep that in the memory bank.
Use it.
Yeah. How can you use pain and maybe a chip on your shoulder to drive you and motivate you for success? Because a lot of these podcasts I listen to and people I've spoken to that are true outliers often had struggles when they were younger and often wanted to prove that person wrong. We love to talk about, and we have spoken about it, and it is important, the positive affirmations, the the mantras, you're a winner, you can keep going, you're special, whatever. But
there's more to it.
we also have a dark side, right? Everyone has that other side themselves that we love to like hide. And how can we integrate that into our psyche and into our behavior without it being destructive and actually being positive? If you have any advice on that.
I do have what I do. Like you said, we all have dark sides. We can all be prone to a bit of depression. We can all be prone to, I can't get out of bed today. I myself, I think the one way I was affected was the pain of the knowledge of the past. It never truly leaves you. It's somewhere. The door's locked, but it's deep under, and then it can give me a bad day. If it hits, then I can't write because my mind's elsewhere. And what I've learned, I am pain driven and emotionally driven. I'm so emotional. Oh God. I think what I went through has driven absolutely everything that came after. Even depression, when I had, even depression, and I felt like I couldn't get out of bed some days. It's not for everybody. I don't want to give bad advice, but this was advice that worked for me because nothing else did. I allowed it. So I wrote a poem. I don't remember it all, but it was called My Nemesis, which is my depression, my nemesis and me. And it was my reluctant friend in the end. See? So I got to learn that when it paid me a visit, I know it was coming before it arrived, because there'd be almost like, I almost started feeling like there was this dark cloud enveloping me. I'd start feeling it. My mind would go from being super, oh my God, on top and positive, which I'm well known for. And suddenly I'm battling that and it's taking a bit of a dark turn. And it's just like, don't get out of bed today. You don't need to get out of bed today. I'd start feeling like I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to answer the door. It's very, very rare this happens now. It's inevitable that after what I've been through, you go through a bit of depression. Happens a lot more in my younger years. Very, very, it'll happen about once a year. It might visit me now. So, but I've become it's become almost like a reluctant friend, like I said, because I don't know how else to receive it other than, look, I don't like you. You're a kind of friend who sticks around and can't get rid of. So if you're going to come, I'm going to allow it. So I will lie in bed and I'll binge watch a favourite TV show that I've watched loads of times. It might be a really dumb, crappy TV show, but I'll watch it because it makes me feel safe and happy, and I will just watch it and watch it and watch it. And if it's got more episodes, the better, because I can just go on and on and on for the day. So I've done that with a couple of TV shows. And I'll allow it. And I might not get out of bed, might not comb my hair that day, I don't get dressed, don't write, my laptop's not open, and I probably barely don't even answer my messages. And that might be just one time a year that happens now, where it used to be 3 or 4. It's just about once. And it did happen actually earlier this year. And about every time, but I probably won't happen now till way into next year. But the time it arrives, it happens less. It stays less. Because I just allow it. You're fighting it. Well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to, some people, I don't know, everybody has their ways. Some people I'm going to just go and get blind drunk and so I don't feel this way, and I get that as well. Or other people might just eat and eat and eat for the whole day, which is a very common theme. Actually, I eat and stay in bed and binge watch. So I do all the time, encompass all 3. And I say to myself, I can do this because I can. I don't, it's okay. If you need to do this, you need to do this. Just go on, put your TV show on, wrap your quilt around you, have as many biscuits as you want. Unless to you, I tell you, there's a few, Jacob. And I just accept it now. When I was young, I'd fight it. I don't fight it anymore, and I'd force myself to get up, get dressed. I was in the wrong frame. You're in the wrong mindset. You're in the wrong mood. So everything goes wrong. and nothing good comes from it because I'm forcing myself to do something I do when I'm in the right mindset. And the result is absolutely tragic. The writing would be rubbish. Then I'm in tears because I've made everything worse. Why didn't I stay? But it might stay around for 2 or 3 days and then it disappears. And that might be it for a year or two. And that's it, fine. I just embrace it now. It's my reluctant friend. It annoys me. It knows I don't like it. It pays me a visit anyway, and I just have to deal with it. And that's how I deal with it. But it wasn't always that easy for anyone who's suffering, heavily right now. I know how bad it can get because I was on antidepressants for years, a long time ago. When I was much, much younger, and I was struggling with all the things I was, trying to navigate in life and learn about me. Who was I? And why did this happen to me? Because you do go through that as well. Why did this happen to me? And why is just some people going through all this pain and tragedy, and then other people seem to go through life and escape it? And you ask yourself, well, it just is. There's no one answer. There's no great answer. There's no answer of wisdom. It's just, it is, and it happens, and that's what happens. But yeah, I struggled with depression much worse when I was younger, and I just found my own way of dealing with it. And I just found that when I stayed in bed, actually, I coped better. If I didn't have to face people, if I weren't forced to do something, was forcing myself to do something, it was harder to deal and manage. It would last longer. But if I just okay, this is a dark day, TV on, remote control, biscuits, tea. I am not peopling anymore. Not for the next 24, 48 hours. Switching that button off, and I'll emerge when I'm ready. And that's how I handle it now, at this time in my life. It took me a long time to get to that point.
Definitely, yeah. It's a really good reframe and a really good way of embracing it, I guess, because if you fight it, it'll just keep battling you for longer, right?
Yeah, it does. And when you're feeling like that, if you've got important jobs to do, like the next chapter or deadline, it can wait. It doesn't have to be done that day when you're feeling your absolute mental worst. It doesn't. It can wait till tomorrow. You think it has to be done in that moment, and then you're panicking and you're stressing out because you just don't want to do it. You can't get out of bed. You can barely wash your face or brush your hair. And it's impossible. But it can wait. So no one's going to die. Everything can wait till tomorrow, unless, you need to be at the hospital for someone, whatever, but put it into perspective. You need to stay in bed, you stay in bed. I've done it with a child as well. I mean, I used to wait. But if it happened to me when I first had Lily, I was still, it'd still visit me once in a while, a bit more often than it does now. I buried myself in all my work and everything. It helped me. And most of the time I was super positive, but I still had my down days. But I can't do that when I've got a child. I can imagine all the moms screaming at me, but I've got a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. And I know. And I bet you've done what I do if you're listening to this. You wait till they're at school. You don't let them know you've just spent all day in bed. Your husband's gone to work. He knows because I trust him. And he knows if I have a day like that, I have to do that. And it's like, I'm not getting out of bed today. I'm not hoovering, or I'm not writing this book. I'm not going to that meeting. I'm not doing this. I'm just staying in bed. And he'll go, Dawn, I've got you. You're okay. You do what you need to do to get yourself back. I'm lucky I've got that man in my life. So Lydia always hid it from my daughter. She never knew. And she'd go to school. In the morning, I'm buzzing around doing a breakfast. I'm in a school uniform, packing a lunch. Have a great day, taking her to school, bubbly and happy. I'd get home, strip, pajamas, curtains, mobile phones, silent, jump into bed, remote control, biscuits, tea, until 2:45, when I then had to get out of bed, get dressed, plaster a smile on my face, pick my child up, and then go through the things. But being able to do that, and actually, it does help. If you've got someone who understands and is around you and knows, that's kind of almost helps you. It helps an awful lot. And I'm so sorry for anyone who doesn't have that person in their life, because it really helped. It helped, and it helped me to navigate, my depressive days, because I was able to just do that. And like I said, last time I had one was in February, and I did just that. Even now, written 27 books, and I do all these interviews, and I've got all this other stuff going on and all that. And I think, God, that woman's really got it together. And God, but what they don't see is, like you said, the dark side when your mental health lets you down a bit, and you've got to navigate that and take time out from peopling and just do it. Just do what you have to do before you can come back and be you again. I allow it. I allow it now.
Yeah, that's really good. And how did you say you feel it coming, or do you just wake up and it's like, boom, I know for sure? Because I'm really interested, because I haven't experienced this in my life so far, really, from what I remember, at least in the last like 1 or 2 years. So how does it work? Do you just
it's almost
wake up and it's just there?
No. I don't know if you've ever heard anyone else talking about this, because I thought I was the only one who experienced this, and I thought, God, people never believe me, And so I've heard other people say the same thing. It's almost like a foreshadowing in a way, foreshadowing or foreboding. And you get about the day before, a day before, maybe even 2 days before, everything's going well. There's nothing in the world that could make you unhappy. Nothing that could make you sad. Life's great. You're writing your books. Your child's happy, doing well at school. Hubby's happy. You're doing all the things, you're in meetings and you're doing all this stuff. And for no reason, and when I say no reason at all, there's nothing that's triggered, nothing. About 24 hours, 36 hours before, you get this overwhelming feeling of doom. It's almost like a doomish feeling, like, it just suddenly you go a bit dark, your mind goes a bit, suddenly you're not feeling so positive, you're not feeling so happy. Suddenly you're feeling like you've got the whole weight of the world on your shoulders. So while you're like this, your back straight, your arms up, you suddenly go like this. And you think, but, I never recognized the signs before. It took years before I recognized the signs. It's like, what the hell is wrong with me? What is going on? What's going on? There's nothing wrong. Am I coming down with something? There's something. And then depression would hit. 24, 36 hours later, you can't get out of bed. And that's the sign for me. It's almost like just kind of a bit like a foreshadowing, isn't it? That feeling of doom visits you first before the sort of that state of depression hit. And people find it really hard. I've had so many people have asked me this question over the years. They find it very, very hard to believe I have suffered with depression, because they've never known me anything but really super happy and bubbly. That's what they're presented with, and that's me. That is me. That's what they see. Like, it's just no way. You're the least depressive person I know, and I think it's one, the way I handle it, but two, I don't make people suffer with me. I'm going to suffer alone. I just want the biscuits and the remote control. I'm going to suffer alone, and I will re-emerge, and I'll be fine, And again, it's like, it can wait. This can wait, that can wait. And everyone who's really super close to me, who's in my sort of really tight-knit stuff, they know. But it's so rare. Very, very, very rare it happens. People have it a lot worse, suffer it all the time, permanently almost. They're on medication constantly and everything. And that is, a really, really, you just want to reach out, and God, you just want to reach out. And I just wish I could just whisper in their ear and say, you know what, it seems really difficult right now, but 2 years from now, you'll have navigated this in so many ways, you won't even be able to, you won't believe it. But it took me years to get to this place. It wasn't easy. And like I said, I suffered a bit more. I've wrote a lot about that in the book as well. And I was on antidepressants for a period of time as well, because it was so bad, I had to, in my younger years. But I was very glad when I came off them, because they have an effect on your mind they numb you to the point that it steals. It's a thief, like a thief in the night, your mind, that steals all your creativity. You can barely think straight or focus.
Wow.
And I just couldn't organize my mind or write very well, or they weren't good for me. I felt like a zombie when I was on them. So like took myself off them, then they're not for me, because I'm not losing this creative side of me.
Yeah.
Duplicate this side of me. The two are going to have to they're going to have to work out, like become friends one way or another. They're just going to have to work out, because I need that, but I don't want to feel like this. But I'm not losing that. I'm going to have to deal with this. So, see, that rhyme. That sounded like a poem.
New poem.
Yeah. So you just have to, everybody's journey is different. I think with mental health, what works for one doesn't work for another. Somebody else's sort of journey through it and what they do might seem ludicrous to someone else, but it works for them. And, but it's still worth, take everybody's bits of knowledge, see what works for them all. If you've got nothing right now that's working for you, okay. So, if anything makes sense, go and look at different podcasts, go and look at websites, go and look and look at the list of things that worked for some people. Look at the list of things that didn't. Make your own list and try. And say, right, the next time I feel really down, I'm going to do at least these two things and check it out and see if it's going to help any. And if it doesn't, cross off the list, add another two, try another two. At least till there's something that might ease the burden and get you through it for a day or two, There's just got to be something for people who it's not working for. If pills aren't working, if they're working, great. That's great. It didn't work for me. I don't know if it's because my mind is just so crazy imaginative anyway. There's all sorts, this labyrinth in here. I'm telling you, you go in, you get lost. I think my pills went in and got lost, I do. Or something, I don't know, but they didn't work. But they work for a lot of people, I know that. So they are good for some people and not good for others. It's how you react to them, I suppose. But I could not lose that creativity side of me. There's not a chance, not a chance. And that was more important. And I'd rather suffer with 2 or 3 days in bed. Well, it wouldn't be that long. It'd be a day or so in bed and just work my way through it. My reluctant friend. I wrote a poem called My Reluctant Friend and My Nemesis. And that's just literally talking about how we had to become reluctant friends over the year. Yeah.
That's a really good framing as well, like reluctant friend. I really like that. And just as an example from my journey so far, just with I had a bit of kind of, I don't know if it's a teenage anxiety or social anxiety after lockdown. I was still like, people kind of the similar to what you were saying, where people wouldn't maybe have expected it, but like if they was talking to me and I was chatting with them, it'd be fine. But I always had that kind of ambient anxiety, and I didn't really like socializing, and I didn't enjoy kind of being in school a lot amongst the people, amongst the crowd. Even though one-on-one conversations were fine, but I struggled sometime during my teenage years. And like you were saying about listening to other people's advice and trying it out, I remember the end of sixth form, halfway through year 13 in sixth form, I'd gone through a breakup, and again, like you said, with the first love thing. And it was a weird one, actually. I kind of, it was horrible in the moment when we did it, and then afterwards I kind of just like, I don't think I turned my brain off, but I like wanted to move on. But then I had some other issues with another girl, got rejected, and then I felt even worse. So it's just like, it was all going downhill. And then
compound latte.
Yeah. And then I just started going to the gym, and I started doing that maybe a couple times a week, and then that slowly compounded, and then I became a bit more confident in myself, and then all of this kind of took off. I was also doing a lot of, obviously, photography, going out in nature. I remember spending hours in nature with my camera after school. I'd be like, I just don't want to go back to school. It's just like, I just don't like it there. I just don't fit in. That's how it all started. Yeah, that's how it all started. Yeah, the photography started in lockdown when I bought a camera. And again, that was another way of me connecting and kind of introspecting and thinking what I want to do with my life as well. So there's been these points and activities in my life which has given me more confidence and given me a less kind of anxiety. And I think it was just a byproduct of COVID, being a teenager, obviously dealing with insecurities and not knowing how to talk to girls and make new friends and stuff. But I'm happy to say I've overcome it to a great extent as well.
Say, during lockdown, you kind of, from beginning to the end of lockdown, you kind of ended up finding yourself.
Yeah,
you discovered who you are and what you wanted, and what's happened since. So Yeah. But
Yeah.
my teenage daughter, I mean, I look at her and think, how can you have any, sometimes you'll have her own lack of confidence. She's obviously I'm a mother and I'm going to say it, but she's a beautiful young woman. She's super intelligent. She's going to go far. I keep saying one day you're going
Yeah.
to run this country. But I'm just super proud, Mama. She's my baby. And, she has these conversations even with me sometimes. She really does lean into me, and we've never hindered her progress and her journey. And she's gone through the goth stage, the pink princess stage, and we've allowed it. When she wanted a bedroom
Yes.
black, she had a bedroom black. When she wanted it pink, she's had it pink. She's gone through every stage you can imagine.
That's
And her
good.
personality changes with each one. And that's just natural. And I've never believed people should hinder that progressive kind of, you should nurture it, because let them find themselves and it will all work out in the end. And it has. And, but sometimes, she talks about her lack of confidence, or, certain, they talk about, she told me about a boy that she liked, and
Yeah.
she was like saying, oh, mom, I can't even look, and there's just absolutely no way, and I wouldn't even know what to do. I can't even be in the same room, and I'm like falling apart.
Yeah. All been there.
Yeah, we've all been there, and there's a sense of something so beautiful, and it gets lost as the years go by. That beautiful vulnerability.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful vulnerability. That sense of almost pureness, and that is just something that's reserved for the youth, because you only go through it once. You only experience that once. You're only in that whole innocent kind of view to love and the being introduced to this whole new world that may include a boy or a girl, or may not. And seeing it as a mom now through my daughter's eyes, oh man, does my heart break sometimes. I just want to say, girl, it's going to be okay. Trust me. It's all going to be okay. And, she had prom recently. And, there's
nice.
you can imagine all the issues around prom and the nervousness and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, it's strange as a parent navigating that from I've got to be really mature about this now, I'm mom. And, it's like, oh my God, my daughter actually wants to talk to me about this. I'm so lucky, because like loads of other parents, their door won't go near them, no conversation, nothing. I'm really blessed. And my daughter talking about most things, not all, but most, she will come. But so I do learn sort of through a new lens now, not as one who was young and being there and going through it. Oh my God, heartbreak, it's awful. I'm dreading that day when it comes to my daughter, and I know it will, it's inevitable, but it's going to be awful.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at it from a new lens of someone who's been through it all. Now I've got this innocent, young teenager who's much more intelligent than me. However, when it comes to love and things of the heart, she's just a donut, I don't mean that I mean, she's just like jelly. She's just like this floating cloud, and she almost appears to me like a completely different person. And even the look on her face, the smile, and it goes from up here to here, and it's like, and she goes all, I forgot that feeling. I forgot how that felt, those first, it's so lovely. It's so beautifully vulnerable. And I must write a poem about that. I think I will.
You should,
Yeah.
You
It's
should.
lovely.
Yeah, no.
So
it's like a drug. It's an endogenous drug. Like the chemicals in our brain just go crank up, the oxytocin, the dopamine, the serotonin, whatever. It just goes crazy when you first kind of have a crush or fall in love with someone, especially at that age.
It's the strongest drug in the world, I think. It's stronger than anything.
It is.
The power it has over you, the power it has. I mean, you've seen, look at all the classics, Wuthering Heights, who display the power of love so beautifully. One of my favourite books, that is. You've got Wuthering Heights, Heathcliff, and anyway, so, and the power it has to kind of completely ruin a life, but completely make one as well. In the same breath almost, because of the strength of those. It's so powerful. and scarily so. And, you know, when you've been that so deep in love, and then while you're still that deep in love, had it completely, your heart completely sliced into a big hole, punched right through your chest,
Yeah.
and you can't, gasping for air, and you can't accept it.
Yeah.
You just mentally explode, you know. It's like, you know, that I've been through, and it, like you, and it broke me for a while. I wouldn't wish upon anybody. But at the same time, I wouldn't want anybody to not experience that power of love, however it ends up. Because to go through life and not experience that incredible, powerful first love or crush, it just, it, a drug. It really is. It's so powerful.
Mm.
It could just change it, everything. Everything in that one moment changes when it hits, you know?
Yeah.
God, that's when a
Yeah.
person is at their most vulnerable, in those first moments,
Yeah.
isn't it? Everything
Definitely.
becomes so vulnerable. You're just
Yeah.
laid bare, you know, out of wounds, you know. Oh, I do love that. That's so,
And what's one thing you want people to remember from your work and the conversation we've just had, to close it off, because I'm going to get kicked out the studio in 20 minutes.
okay. My one takeaway will be just do it. Believe it.
Yeah.
Just do it and believe in you, no matter what. Block out all the white noise. Just do it. Believe it. And don't let anybody put you down, because we all come into this world with nothing, and we're all going to enter. We're all going to leave it with nothing.
Mm.
You know, everybody, we're all the same. You know,
Mm.
we're just all human beings finding our way in this world, finding our place. So just do it and believe in you, and
Yeah.
block out all that white noise. Because if you really, 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 really want to, you can do it.
Yeah. Awesome. DG Torrens, ladies and gentlemen, Dawn, I absolutely loved this conversation and really, really appreciate it. And thank you for your story and sharing your emotional, powerful wisdom and life experiences with us. It's been amazing. I can't wait to do part 2 in the near future. It'd be amazing to do part 2 because
no less. I'd like to
yes,
look forward
yeah,
to that.
yeah, that would
Oh,
be absolutely awesome.
thank you.
Where can people go if they want to find your work?
Do you know? Oh, I'm everywhere. If you just type in DG Torrens, literally, it's that's I've got a website, DG Torrens Author. I'm on TikTok, DG Torrens, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. You'll find me. Type in DG Torrens. It'll
Awesome.
bring up. One will lead
Yeah,
to another somewhere.
yeah,
Yeah. So
awesome. I'll
thank
leave all the
you.
stuff in the description.
Thank you so much, Jacob. This has been one, I'm not just saying, but it's been one of my favorite interviews. It's just been such a delight. And you're so intelligent and wise. It's refreshing and you're an inspiration. So thank you.
If you want to start your own podcast but have no idea where to start, and you want to generate viral social media clips and get your dream guests onto your show, even from just using your laptop in your bedroom like I did, then my Pro Remote Podcast Blueprint is exactly for you. It is a private paid course and community that has every single step and process I've used and continue to use to grow this show. And I include every single secret, every single tactic I do and still use that will get you results super fast. And also, if you want to access me personally every single week, then as part of this course, you'll also be able to join live weekly calls where I go through your podcast and answer your questions to get you results much, much faster. So if you want to actually start a podcast and stop dreaming and get millions of social media views and book your dream guests in half the amount of time it took me, then click the first link in the description.